Hello folks, welcome to the show. This is going to be an interesting one. It's the old buzzard digging a hole down to China. They started in this old store of wide kind up in the mother lode of California, and they started digging and they got carried away and started really going deep. This is a lot of interesting stuff. The old buzzard and Bob Clem doing some high banking in the California mother lode.
Don't hit me in the head with the hook, Bob. I don't have a hard hat on. That's a good thing for any of you guys that are going to be digging one of these holes. You might think about having a hard hat on. Don't do it like old buzzard here, but ain't we having fun way down here in Mother Earth? Well, I tell you what, we're out here and we're in the hole. And let me explain some about what we're doing. Well, this area, the area that we're in out here, contains gold, and it's a known area for gold. And I found a shovel sticking in the side over here a while ago, and I'll pull it out there and show it to you. I pulled it out right underneath this rock right here. So the old timers worked down here, and or somebody did many years ago. And I pulled that old shovel out there, and I want to show you something. We hit a clay layer in here, and right on top of this clay layer, if you can see, this is gravel up here, and right underneath this is clay. And let me show you some of the rocks. See these rocks here? The edges are rounded smooth, and a while ago I found some gold right in here. I panned this out. You take this area out that's laying right on the clay. Now it's not even. See how smooth and rounded that rock is? And the iron oxide, and you can see the pyrites and stuff right in here in it. See there's another rock. And all these little rocks here are all rounded, and by that they've been washed round by river action. The water come through and it washed these round rocks in here. And what we suspicion is that this clay that we hit is a false bedrock. Now what do I mean by false bedrock? It's some kind of a decomposed rock, mud or sediment or something, and it continues down here. This looks like a decomposed rock. I found pieces of quartz in here. That layer, the same layer that's over here, runs underneath these big boulders, and the gold, the better gold, the larger nuggets, tend to lay right on the bottom, right on top of this clay layer. Now if we can get through the clay layer and into a gravel layer below, it could be just a real bonanza. And that's what old Bob and I are working on, and we're digging this test hole down in here. Now, let me tell you that when you're mining, you can sure get your exercise, and you start working in a hole like this, you can get some exercise too. And you want to be really careful. You want to make sure that none of these big old boulders and stuff like that come in on you. We've been doing this for a long time, so we're kind of experienced at this, digging holes out here in the ground. And when we're all done, for you environmentalists, we're going to fill the hole back in. We're just running a test down to see what we got here. We're digging a hole down, and then when we get done, we fill it all back in again, and maybe we'll leave a little bottle down there. Bob suggested that we leave a little bottle way in the bottom of our hole for anybody else that might come along and dig in the bottom of it. We're down now in this level. We're down here, oh, let's see, I'm 6'3", so that must be about 5 foot to the bottom of our hole. We feel like that we can enlarge our hole somewhat. And you can see down here where I'm standing, the material has several different layers in it. Right down here in the very bottom where I'm digging, I've got a brown layer, if you can see that, and I've got some mica schist down in there, and we've got little hunks of quartz. And let me show you the rock down in here. Now this rock down in here, if you can see it, this is all angular, real angular rock. It's let me just dig some of it out here and I'll show it to you. Now there's some gold in this. We're still getting some gold, but looky here, right here, I'll just dig this piece right out of the side here if I can. But see that? Now that's a piece of quartz, and see how rough and angular that material is. That's all rough and angular there, and that means that that hasn't moved in a creek, that this possibly is decomposed, or something happened in Mother Nature real fast, an earthquake, a volcano, or something that put this layer in here. Now if below this layer there's a river wash gravel layer where we get these round smooth rocks again, then old Bob and I will be smoking them big long Savannah cigars, and we'll be riding around in limousines with plenty of money, because I'll tell you what, they didn't get it all. They didn't get all the gold in this upper stuff. We've been running a lot of that through our sluice box set up over there, what we call high banker, and we're about 100 yards from the creek. And we're just digging a hole down. We haven't struck any water in here or anything, and we're just going down. It's a dry year, so it gives us an opportunity to poke this hole down and maybe hit that bonanza gravel below it. If we hit some bonanza gravel, or maybe a Chinese tunnel or something, we found a Chinese coin, and we found it looked like an old opium box up in the upper stuff up here. So we know the Chinese worked this area. And if we break through and find a tunnel down there, then that means that the Chinese broke through into it and tunneled around in that bedrock gravel, and they were pretty good at that. I don't suspicion that we'll find that, because I think that if we find gravel down there, it could be a bonanza. Of course, then again, we might just be getting some exercise out here, but at least we didn't have to pay $90 to go down to the gym and get it. So I'm going to quit jawing and get back to digging, and then we're going to lift some more material out and run it through our high banker. And when we really need the gold, we work this layer right on top of the clay. And every area is different. The old timers didn't get all the gold. They say that they got less than 5%. During the Depression years in the 1930s, why, the guys came out and they started digging holes like this again, and they were taking out $10, $15 worth of gold at $20 an ounce. At $350 an ounce, well, we're making $100, $150 a day out mining for gold, sometimes less, sometimes more, because Mother Nature, she don't pay off on a regular set scale. She don't know a minimum wage, and she don't know a maximum wage either. In other words, I hit a hole one time in 1980 and took out a lot of ounces of gold in just about a 2-week period of time. But then there's been other times when I've worked along and didn't find too much. If you really get bit by the gold fever, it doesn't matter, because you get down in here and you get to investigating these stratas down in the earth, and boy, it's just fantastic. It's interesting. It's interesting, and you can get some gold with it too. So let me go ahead and fill some buckets up, and I'll send them up to Bob, and then we'll go up there and talk with him a little bit, and we'll take some of this material over and we'll run it through the high banker and show you how the high banker works, and then we're going to take it over and we're going to wash it out and see if we get any gold. Get that final process down there for you and give you an idea of how we do it. And we do it a lot different in different locations. Now, that we do it one way here because our gold is coarse. We might do it a different way on the beach at Nome because the gold is real fine there. And I'll give you an idea of where I'm working, and I'm going to show you a place where you can go out right close to home home possibly and get some gold yourself, because the Gold Prospector Association has got a lot of places where you can go prospecting for gold. The Forest Service, the BLM, the National Forest, a lot of those areas are open, and we're going to talk about that and talk about some areas where you can go out and get some gold. Maybe not dig a hole like this unless you file a plan of operation, but a lot of areas you can. If you file a simple plan of operation, you can dig a hole and then fill it back in when you're done, and nobody say anything to you. So let's do some more digging, get some more material up there, and then we'll go up and talk with old Bob. Okay, let's send this bucket up to you, Bob. And then I'm going to come out of here, and we're going to take a look and see what we got in that sluice box and talk about cleaning up. All right. Okay, take her on up. Now I'm going to come right on up out of here. Boy, we got quite a hole going down there, Robert. That looking pretty good. Now, we know that there's more gold right on top of that layer than we're getting down in that clay, but we're getting enough down in the clay to make it interesting to run a test to get on through there and get our ladder on down a little bit deeper. Well, what do you think, Bob? Are we rich yet?
I don't know. We got a hole about 18 feet deep there, though, George.
Well, it's getting on down there. I'll tell you something now. When you go out to do this on your own, be careful. It's not as safe as it looks, you know. I've been at it for 30 years, and Bob and I, we get a lot of gold when we go out, but don't be discouraged if you don't get it the first time, and be real careful. Make sure that none of them big rocks are hanging over you, and if they are and they're loose, well, take them out of the side and stuff. And let's go down now and take a look in our sluice box, and that's the tail of the deal there, and that'll tell us whether we're getting any gold. Okay, Bob, let's run this last little bit of a bucket through here, and then we'll shut down. Now what we've got is I've got some grizzlies in here, and this is just a regular high banker. Just a regular high banker. We've got water coming into it. We've got grizzlies to grizzle off the larger rocks, and the smaller stuff goes down over our sluice box. And then the gold, which is heavy, will be trapped underneath the riffles, and the lighter and larger material washed out of our box. Bob and I have been feeding the box for some time, and this is Bob Clem. Say hello to your mother, Bob. Anyway, Bob and I, we mine a lot together, and Bob's from Arizona, and we get out and we dig on the weekends and stuff like that, and we got a pretty good hole going here. So let's shut the water off. I'll turn this valve here, and then we'll shut this one off here. And let's take a look in there, Bob, and see if we can see anything. You see any gold in the box?
Some color in there.
My God, you got better eyes than I do. Where do you see it at?
Right there, I just see one right there.
Oh man, look at that. You do have good eyes, Bob. Look at this baby right here. Oh man, it's stuck down in there. You got something to get it out with? I don't know if the folks at home can see that or not, but that is a nice nugget. Now that had to come right off the top of the, let's see if you got something there to dig it out with. Oh man, that's almost one of them swearing nuggets. Look at that baby, huh? Look at that nugget.
That's a chunk of gold.
Now what would you say that's worth, Bob?
Probably on a necklace, I'd say 75 bucks.
75 or $100? Well, that's a nice little find, and I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to wash all this out, take it over and clean up, and see if we can find some more in there. Maybe that's not the only one that's hid down in there, but that's a nice one. Okay.
Little nugget there.
Now, that's the first time that nugget's ever been seen. It's been hiding in the Mother Earth down there in that old clay streak for millions of years. And look at that baby. Isn't that nice? I'll tell you, when you find something like that, folks, and you're out here in the woods, there's no feeling in the world like it. Don't get any better than this, does it, Robert?
Let's clean this thing out.
All right, let's take a little break first and get the washout tray, and we'll clean it out, and we'll show you how that works. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to clean up. We're going to take all the stuff that's in our sluice box and wash it down into this tub. And Bob and I are going to flip the thing here and pull the riffles. The riffles come up like that. Tub, everything comes out. We'll wash that other piece of carpet out up there. I think you got to go inside there, Bob. Yeah. Pull that loose.
Piece up in here, yeah.
There's a wing nut on that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and just wash the carpet out. Now what the carpet does, it catches all the flour gold. And then of course the bigger gold, the nuggets are caught in the riffles, as you saw with that big nugget. And then we got the smaller gold. And if we got any other nuggets, well, they'll be washed right down here into this thing. Let me get this up out of your way, Bob. Get the nut off. Lay that carpet. You need to get a wrench for that up in there. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, I got the wrench here. Get that loosened up, Bob. Hang on to that for me. And one thing you might notice too while I'm working on that, show them that wrench, Bob. Notice that nice orange color paint that I got painted on all them tools? Well, that's to keep me from losing. And oh man, look at there, Bob. There's a couple of nice little pieces going right in the box. That always looks good. There. Yeah, hey, look at that. Well, we'll wash that little booger right on down there, Bob. Might not be too bad a weekend out here, huh? Okay. Well, we've been out on this hole before, and we've always done pretty good. There's another little piece. Look at that piece. Now, I'll bet you, Bob, that stuff right there, I'll bet you that come out of the decomposed stuff down below down there, and that's looking real good. That piece
right
is.
there, George.
So anyway, let me lay this nut and stuff here, and let's take this tub. Now, what we've done, we've washed everything out of our sluice box. Now, this is what we call concentrates. You know, we refer to different terms in mining. We say concentrates and black sand and hematite and leverite and all those things. But the stuff that's in our tub here is what we call concentrates. And let me just wash that piece of carpet there out. That's the carpet out of our head box. A lot of times what you want to do is save that carpet because it'll be impregnated with real fine gold. Sometimes at the end of the season, what I'll do is I'll burn that, and then I'll pan the ashes because the gold's in there. But this stuff that we got in our tub now, this is our concentrates. We're going to take this down and we're going to work it out, and we're going to work out the fine gold and stuff. Normally, I take this stuff home, but this weekend we're going to work it out right here so we can show you how we do it. Okay, so let's go down and work this out, Bob.
Let's go, George.
Okay, Bob, I got a tub set up over here, and I want to show them how we do our cleanup. I've got our concentrates in the tub. We're going to take it over here into this other tub that I've got set up and pan these concentrates out. I got me a nice bucket here. I'm going to pour off some of the excess waters so we don't get too much mud. And Bob, if you'll sit down over there and hold that screen for me, we'll work these concentrates out. Okay, you got that little nugget there?
Yeah.
Now this is about an 1/8 inch screen that I'm using. I got a gold pan here. Bob's going to hold it for me. This is a homemade screen. You can buy screens already made. So what he's doing is he's holding that underneath there, and I'm just going to wash the material out from the sluice box that we had. Going to wash that down through the screen, and then we're going to take, let me get all that material washed out there. Some of it kind of sticks in there, you know. Okay, we got that all washed out into the screen. Now we're going to go in and screen it and shake that material through. Now, anything that'll go through that 1/8 inch screen will go through there. Now let's take the stuff from the screen, and I'll dump that all into this pan here. Okay, so any larger nuggets should be in this pan. Check our screen to make sure there's nothing sticking in there. Any larger nuggets then should be in this, and the finer stuff should be in that other pan over there. And I like to kind of take a look at this stuff. We're finding some limestone, fragmented limestone, some quartz pieces down in there. A lot of leverite. You all know what leverite is. That's leave it right where you found it because it isn't worth anything. Now, you can pan this fairly fast. I like to look at all these rocks because that gives me an idea what's in there and see how angular that rock is. So let's just pan this down right quick. Now these pans have got these traps in them, make gold panning really a snap even for the beginner, because the gold is heavy. It has a specific gravity of 19. It'll drop in, allow that lighter material just to flow right over the top. I use a tub because, you know, I want to make sure that I don't lose any gold. But let's just float it out there and pan it down and see if we can see any gold in this stuff that we've been working. Look there, Bob. There's some more nuggets. Look at those nuggets. Now, see, we screened this, so we don't have any fine material. All we got is the larger gold in here. And look at those nuggets. Aren't those beauties? And they just lay right in there. That's why we screen it, because it makes that panning so easy. Look, there's 4 nice nuggets. And now we saw that one in the sluice box, but these 3 are strangers. Those are really nice. Now you see this nugget here, if you can get a close-up, this nugget is real rough. And this one here, this little piece of gold right here, come out of that angular bedrock down there that we're...
Hello folks, my name's Tom Massey, and I've got a doozy of a show lined up for you. I've got George Buzzard Massey, the founder of the Gold Prospectors Association. This guy's probably forgot more about prospecting for gold than most of us will ever know, and he's going to be up on that famous Nome Gold Beach showing you how to get that fine flower gold. Real educational. He's got Bob Clem along with him and yours truly, and you'll notice the camera gets pretty stationary when I'm in front of it because I filmed all these shows up there with him, and this is a real educational one. I hope you enjoy George Buzzard Massey.
Well, we're out here on the beach, and I'm going to talk to you about fine gold recovery. You know, all over the world, really, the United States, back in North Carolina and down in Florida on some of the beaches, and in South Texas, even in San Francisco, there was millions of dollars worth of gold taken right off the beaches in San Francisco and Southern California. Of course, you got Gold Beach, Oregon, which is really famous, and up around Crescent City all along the Pacific coast. And you get up into Alaska, well, you've got Cape Yakutak, and of course the world-famous beach at Nome, Alaska, which is the probably the granddaddy of all of them. But you got a lot of beach placers, and there's a lot of fellas that go out and work them. And they learn some really interesting things working beach placers. I've seen guys like Bug-Eye Brooks, that's his nickname. His real name is Rich Brooks. And old Bug-Eye, he came up to the beach and he mastered working the beach and saving that fine gold. And then he went back into the Yuba River there in California, in one of the rivers where he dredged all the time, and he cleaned up his concentrates using beach methods, and boy, the guys were really surprised at how much gold he was getting. And so if you adapt these processes, no matter where you go, the process is saving that fine gold. You can get a lot more gold on your weekends and when you go out. And there's a lot of fine gold in Utah and out in the deserts of Arizona, and it's just a matter of learning how to work that. And one of the best places to learn how to master the technology, and it's a simple technology of trapping that beach gold. So I want to go over with you a tried and true beach operation. Now, let me tell you, they're not real pretty, they're not yuppie, they're not upscale, they don't cost you $1 million. You can go and get you some scrap lumber down at the Home Club or one of the hardware stores close to you, and you can build one of these things, and I'll show you what kind of stuff is built, because there's really nothing that's manufactured that'll trap gold like just a regular old beach box will. And Blueberry John, he's one of the guys that's about 80 years old, 75 years old. Blueberry developed over the years of 60 years of working the beach how to trap that fine gold. And so have a lot of other fellas. And then after I show you this and how it works, well, we're going to have we're going to have Tom come on, and Bob Clem, and we're going to show you some places, hopefully, that are around close to you that you can get some gold. But let's just take a look at one of these typical beach boxes. Like I say, it's not pretty to look at, but sometimes the things that are not too pretty work the best, you know, and that goes for men too. You know, pretty men don't seem to work too well. Pretty women work awful well, but pretty men don't. Anyway, let's take a look at a regular beach box. What you got to have is a nice wide box, a lot wider than what your normal box would be, because what you got to do is you got to spread that material out, because on the beach you got a lot of fine, heavy sand, and that fine, heavy sand needs to be spread out with just a little bit of water moving over it, so that that fine gold can drop out and the other material can move away from it. Because what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a particle of gold that's much smaller than the surrounding particles of black sand in many cases. Now, you will find the occasional nice big piece. Now, even though that particle of gold is 19 times heavier than water, or probably 2 or 3 times heavier than the other heavy material that it's locked in with, it still has to displace that larger piece of material and drop out in that box. In all of the mining equipment that we have, we trade off. You know, nothing is perfect, and so we trade off. You know, a guy builds a perfect gold dredge for the spot that he's working, but it doesn't work too well in another spot because the gold can be different. So let's take a look at some of the things that make a beach box work. Like I said, you spread it out, you spread your water out, you get your flow down to where it's manageable, and no more water than's necessary. Remember that, that's important. And then what I've got here is I've got a rubber matting that goes down here, and this is just a rib matting like you would find as a walkway, you know, I don't know any other way to describe it than the black rubber matting that they walk on. Guys use all different kinds of stuff for this, but this reel, it's just got a little lip on it here, and it's ribbed, and what happens is that the gold will drop into those ribs, and then the other stuff will wash down. Now, a lot of the gold will come down too, but it'll leave a lot of gold up there. It's visible, and the more gold you see, when you see a lot of gold, then you take that and you dump that off into a bucket. And if you can come in here and take a look, you can see that we got gold all in this area here from shoveling into it. We got gold all over there. So I've got a pregnant mat, and I'm ready to pull my riffles up and take that and wash it out into a bucket and put it back in here. Now, that gold will move all the way down this ribbed matting, and you can see the black sand here, and it goes into what we call a nomad, and that's a 3M product. And what that is that's just that woven nomad carpet that they have, and we call it miner's moss, a lot of us, and the gold will get entrapped into that along with the black sand and the ruby sand. And then when we come out of that, what we've got here on the end of it is I've got 2 Henrys hooked up, one running each way to split that material so that I can handle the flow of water, because again, I've got too much water for 1 Henry, so I've got 2 of them. And with a little ingenuity, what you can do is you can split that and make 3 if you've got too much water yet. But remember, you want to spread that out and make it nice and wide. Now, some of the fellas will take and they make their box, and they'll use, instead of using 2x4s, they'll use plastic pipe and all sorts of things. And at the GPAA, I think we've got some plans on how to make a beach box. And like I said, you can adopt it not only if you're working the beach, you can adapt it anywhere that you have this flour gold. And I'll tell you something, if you trap the flour gold, buddy, you can get gold every weekend that you go out. So what you do here is when you start to see gold in there, of course you want to clean up. I hardly see them in my Henry, but I use that Henry to clean up some of the concentrates from the boil box and the way the beach box works. And then of course you want to work your you want to make sure that you've got a good foot valve and a good pump, a good trash pump to work out in the beach if that's where you're working, or working the creek if that's what you're doing there. And you can just take this simple plastic hose and drill holes in it with a drill motor to make your spray bar. You want about 1/4 inch holes so that they don't get plugged up with material, because remember, you're sucking out of the ocean, so you'll have some seaweed and stuff, so you want those holes at least 1/4 inch, and you want that spraying up on your board. And when you take a shovel full of material, and I got some dumped over here, you put that on there, you want to make sure that you throw it up here on that board and allow that to wash down in there real easy. And then I've got a 1/4-inch screen here that classifies the material as it washes over. Now, I'm just going to dump this in here and we'll take a look at what happens down there on my mat. Now you see the material as it's coming on the mat, and see it's covered up my gold, and it's just kind of working along there, and it'll take a while for that black sand to move over there. You don't feed your box too fast. That's what a lot of people that go out and work the beach their first time, they have a tendency to just want to shovel in their box all the time. Well, gold mining is kind of like the Army. It's hurry up and wait. You hurry up and get out there, and then you take your time. You kind of wait, throw a shovel full up there, let it work its way down, let that fine gold settle along in that rib matting, let that wash out of there, and you just take your time. We're going to take a short break for commercial, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to bring Tom on. Tom's got a lot of places where this fine gold is occurrence. As a matter of fact, most places where you find placer gold, you'll find an abundance of flour gold. Seldom, though, will it be as fine as it is on the beach. And because it's so fine on the beach, it's what they call gold dust. You can put some of it in your hand and like that, and you can blow it, and it's just like face powder. What I recommend to you, that any time that you go out prospecting, whether you're looking for beach placers or whether you're working desert placers or wherever, but what I recommend to you is that you shovel into your box, you collect your concentrates, and you dump those concentrates off into your buckets. You see my buckets back over here, and you dump that into your buckets and you take it home with you, because you can't take the beach home with you. And a lot of times the surf is up and you can't keep your foot valve out and things like that. But what you can take home with you is an abundance of this black sand and this concentrate. And then when you're at home, when you're in your garage or whatever, and you've got your operation set up, or if you want to do it like I do and sit right there in front of the TV set in your easy chair with your tub and your gold pan, and you can pan out those concentrates and use your sucker bottle to pull it out. We're going to take this back to the old Buzzard Goose mine, and I'm going to show you how these concentrates work. But first we're going to take a break, and then I'm going to bring Tom and maybe Bob over, and we're going to talk about some of the places where that you can go prospecting, because chances are there's some of this fine gold right around close to where you live, and they'll show you where it's at. And I'm going to tell you about the Buzzard Special, because I got a real good deal for you on that, and I want to tell you about that and how that you can have a whole lot of different places where you can go prospecting. So we'll be right back. I got Tom Massey. How you doing, Tom?
Good.
And, and Tom brought the book along, and we're going to talk a little bit about beach placers. Tom, Bob, I know you've had some experience on the beach. What can a guy expect to get in a day out there on the beach?
Well, up here in the Nome Beach, George, it's not uncommon to get an ounce or ounce and a half, even 2 ounces after a good storm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what about like down Crescent City, California, Gold Beach, Oregon, or down there on the Texas coast?
Those beaches carry gold also, and I understand that you can get a ½ ounce or an ounce down there even.
You just got to do your prospecting down there and get into a good spot. Up here it's a lot easier because you got a lot of good spots, but there you got some real good spots, but you just got to prospect them out and find them.
Yeah, well, that's gold at $350 an ounce. That's $300–400 a day, fellas. You're talking lots of money here.
Yeah.
It's all flour gold. There's no big nuggets or anything. It's just flour gold.
Fine gold.
It's fine gold, but a lot of it.
Tell me something, Tom. If there's that kind of gold, and you're finding that kind of gold, and I know you have. I know you worked North Carolina, and I know you worked California beaches and up in Oregon. If you can find that kind of gold on the beach, how come more people aren't out doing it?
Well, a lot of people don't know.
They don't know about it.
They don't believe. They hear that all the gold's been found. There ain't no more gold out there, but that ain't true. Only 5% of it's ever been taken out.
Yeah.
They think a beach to get a suntan on.
Yeah. Well, I understand the suntan. The sun rays will work your skin over and cause skin cancer, you know, but this is Mother Nature's welfare system. God go out there if he don't have a job and he can get gold on the beach then.
Yeah.
But it's flour gold. Where does a guy sell his gold, Tom?
Well, a lot of guys sell their gold at the gold shows, the GPA gold shows, and they're advertised every now and then, and that's a good place to sell your gold. And then also you can sell it to some of the smelters and jewelry dealers. And
if you have 4 or 5 ounces, you can sell it to Englehart.
Yeah.
Well, you go through a smelter and they refine it and they sell it to Engelhard. The best way to sell it, of course, is at the gold shows and swap meets and places like that. They make jewelry. They make these little bezels or bezels. And
For the right price, I'll buy it.
Yeah, for the right price, anybody. But, you know, ladies and gentlemen, when I work a beach placer, and this is real good information no matter where you're out prospecting, is that I take and I develop the concentrates, and then I bring the concentrates back to my home where I'm set up in my garage to work out my stuff. And by that I mean that I don't clean the gold down to it's where it's completely clean and ready for sale. I bring it back, it's still got some black sand in it, because I don't take that time away from my field mining. And I also do that when I'm working on the river. I'll just take the concentrates from my dredge and maybe I'll rough pan them to see if there's any nuggets in there, and then I'll dump all that stuff into a bucket, and I always carry it back to my hooch, what I call my hooch, and then we pan out the concentrates and clean it up with our sucker bottle and stuff like that to find the gold. And that's what I do there, and I'll show you. I have in this pan here some material. Now, I know fellows that work the beaches even in Southern California, and of course they have to do a little bit more shoveling down there because the sand's not as rich as some of the beaches are. The ones up around, all along the Pacific coast, and of course back on the East Coast around Virginia and in that area, there's been some reports. I've never worked the beaches back there, but I've had a lot of guys write me letters and tell me that they have, and that it's pretty much the same, basically fine gold that they find there, and I haven't heard of too many nuggets. On the beach at Nome, I guess there are a few nuggets that was found, but it's pretty rare. Now, what I've done in this particular pan is I've taken some of my beach concentrates and I've thrown them in my pan here, and once you get them down, you can get them down fairly good by running them through a Henry. And that's a piece of sewer pipe that you've cut in half, and you got a garden hose in it. You spoon your concentrates in there, and you concentrate it down a little bit more. And every one of these steps that you go through just concentrates it down some more. So now you'll wind up with some fairly rich concentrates like I've got here in the pan, but still got black sand. And I will generally take a magnet sometimes and remove the magnetics from that. But sometimes when you're dealing with this fine gold, a magnet will entrap several of those tiny particles of gold. And some of them are so fine that they're just like face powder. But the first step that I do in cleaning that is I'll take and I'll pan that. And I'll take that concentrate in the pan, and I'll spread that out like that. Now, you know, to go in there and try to pick every one of those pieces out is quite a chore, but there's a way to do that. Now, Blueberry, he's got his bounce, and in the GPAA tape, Blueberry John shows his bounce. I've got a different method that's simple. A lot of different things work, and I use it as a tapping method. And if you'll just see here, I can take and tap on that, and the gold will gather up right alongside the edge of the pan, like so. And that's almost clean with the black sand removed. Let's just try that again. Let me dip that down here in the water, and I've just got a pinch of my concentrates. You know, you can pan and sample. Now, one of the best beaches to work is that 40 miles of beach at Nome, Alaska, to work for beach placers. But even on that beach, as rich as that is, and you can take almost any pan of material up there and find some gold in it. But even as rich as that is, you need to take your gold pan and prospect. Now let's just tap that, let that walk over there. Here, let me show you once more. Let's take this thing, let's swirl that around there and spread it out. See, we just kind of shake it like that and spread it out. And then we take and we tap like this on the pan, and see all that gold settled up over there. Now let me show you the next step, how we get it out. We take our sucker bottle, we put a squeeze on the sucker bottle, and then we go right in that edge of that pan and just kind of vacuum that gold right up. Now that gold we got in our sucker bottle. See it here? See it right there in the sucker bottle? We got that, and that's nice clean gold, and we can dump that in. Still just a tiny bit of black sand, but certainly saleable when you got it down to where that it's 90% gold. You can ship it to a smelter, you know, a refiner. There's a lot of them around. If you don't have the name of them, you can write into the GPAA and we'll give you. Now you just spread that around again, and you do that process again. See, we got it there. Now you just tap on that pan. See that gold just walk right up there. See, and gather in that ridge. And when you get it to that certain point, then you stop. You take your sucker bottle, put a squeeze on it, and just vacuum it up. And it's a slow process, but it's a labor of love. Mining has to be a labor of love by nature. Now you see, we probably got a pennyweight of gold in there. What's that worth, a pennyweight? Well, a lot of people take that and put it in a locket, a bezel or a basil, depending on whether you're from Texas or not. And I'm not making fun of Texans. I love Texas. Texas, that's where men and women are proud of it. So is Alaska. Anyway, some people take that and they put it in a little bezel or basil, and they put it on a chain around your neck, and they sell that for jewelry. Now, what are they getting for that? Well, some of them sell that. Some of the prospectors sell that for as high as, $2 a grain. And in a pennyweight, there's 20 grains in a pennyweight. That'd be $40. That works up to about $800, $900 an ounce. You don't have to dig as much if you can get $1,000 an ounce for it. Your nuggets, the coarser stuff, like I got here in this bottle. Now this didn't come off of a beach, but this is coarser gold. We're just talking about what gold sells for. A little nugget like this one here. This is a fairly large size nugget. A little nugget like that probably worth about 25 to 50 bucks. That means you're getting, if you add that up, that means you're getting about $1,000 an ounce for your gold. I saw some gold from the Valdez Creek, one of the largest mines in the state of Alaska. And the guy had some nice nuggets. He had them down at Fred Meyer's. He was selling Fred Meyer's in Anchorage. The last time I was in Anchorage, and he had all this pile of nuggets there, and he had $59 a pennyweight. That works out to about $1,200 an ounce for that gold. That's a pretty good price. That's a far cry from the $400 or the $380, whatever the London price is. If you take this and ship it to a refiner, normally what they're going to charge is they're going to charge you a refining fee. They're going to take the impurities. They're going to ship it to maybe Englehart or somebody, depending on how much you got, and you're going to wind up getting a shrinkage of about 20%, and then you'll get the spot price or with a few bucks knocked off, and then your refining charge on that. So you take a penalty that way. If you can be a little bit creative about selling your gold, you can get a lot more for it.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in. That's some interesting stuff out there on the beach. And the GPAA runs a Alaska trip up there. You've probably seen some of the commercials. They go up every year, and that's a real education out there, and you can get a lot of gold. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here again for another episode with the Old Buzzard. Here we go again, folks. Another one of these gold prospecting shows with the Old Buzzard. He's going to be out in the deserts doing some metal detecting, showing you how to find that gold out there. He's going with a gentleman by the name of Jake Hardwick. And this is a little bit warm and a little bit hot out there in the desert.
Sure pretty out here on the desert, huh, Jake?
Oh, I love this place.
Man, this is really pretty country. Did you bring that water along?
Oh,
huh?
got her back down
Look
there,
at
buddy.
look at all this. Look at all this rose quartz over here. What we're doing is we're looking for the old post office at Weaver. Now Weaver was named after Pauline Weaver, and he was a famous guy. Gee, look at this quartz here, Jake. Look at this. This is a whole rotten layer of quartz, old rose quartz that runs through here.
That's pretty.
You know, I got some ideas. Yeah, I got some ideas. Why don't we take a break here, Jake?
Okay.
I got some ideas. I'm just going to set myself right down here. There's probably millions of dollars worth of gold right here in this vein. You sit down and take a break, bud.
Okay.
You know, look at this quartz, huh? I got myself an idea that if we can find that old post office, see, back in the 1860s here in Arizona, it isn't necessarily like what you see on television. The Wells Fargo didn't take everybody's gold. The United States Post Office was around. They had a post office here at Weaver, and the fellas took their nuggets in, Jake, and they took their nuggets in to the post office, and that's where they traded. They shipped them off, you know, for Phoenix and Prescott in those days, and then they deposited them in the bank up there, and the post office actually weighed a lot of the nuggets in. And I understand in this post office here in Weaver that they had a little assay office in the back. Now, I know that there's a lot of stories about this old mining camps out here on the desert, and I want to caution you that mining areas are a dangerous area. You can be walking along, Jake, and folks, and you can see a hole. You can't even see the hole. Old mine shaft there, you can't even see it. But that's one of the things that makes the desert so interesting. You know, if it hadn't have been for those old timers out here, you know, the desert is certainly not a boring place, but it's enhanced by the old diggings and the old tailing piles and the old workings and old buildings from the miners back in those days. You know, and this is a piece of rose quartz that I have here, and there's this white quartz all over the ground. You know, Jake, I ruined myself. I really ruined myself, buddy. I picked up a piece of quartz one day. We were out like this, just enjoying ourselves, and I broke the sucker open, and it had gold stuck inside of it.
Wouldn't even pull apart.
No, it wouldn't pull apart. And that ruined me. Every time I stop and bend over and pick up a piece of quartz, I got to take a look at it. And this is a whole channel run through here. Now, the way that you can find out if you come up on something like this, you say, well, does it have any gold in it? You know, there's heavy iron-looking rocks like this one. But when you find an in-place vein like that, we may have stumbled on a discovery right here, Jake. But how would we check it out? Well, there's a couple things you can do. One, you can take a sample of this, and then you can take it into and send it into the GPAA, and the fellows crush it up, and they run a kind of an ore evaluation on it, and that'll tell you what it looks like to some of the fellows down there that run the assays for the GPAA. And then if you want to, you can take another bit of it and you can send it off to an assayer like Colorado Assaying or Reed Engineering over there in LA or someplace, and they charge anywhere from $15 to $25 to run your sample and give you a spectral analysis. Now, let me tell you that a lot of times the old miner, he'll come back and it'll show 4 or 5 ounces to the ton. He think, man, I've struck a rich.
Yeah.
I'm going to get rich on this. But when he starts crushing it up with his mortar and pestle and panning it out with a gold pan, he finds that he can't find any gold in it at all. And he says, what happened? Maybe the assayer lied to me. Well, it wasn't. A lot of times what you'll find is you'll find complex ores. That means that the gold is locked up in sulfide. So the first test that you want to take on this is when you get your sample back. If you've got one of those global positionings that a lot of the guys are using, or if you just know your way around the desert like me and old Jaker does, well, then what you can do is you can remember where this vein is. But the first thing you do when you get home with some of this ore is you take your mortar and pestle, crush it up, and then pan it out. Of course, we don't have any water out here to pan it out, so Jake and I are gonna go be panning any out here. But that's kind of what you do with it. So if you come across a vein like this, don't just assume that it's been tested, or if there was gold in it, somebody would found it before you did. This is a big desert out here, big desert. And these veins, a lot of times, maybe this has only been uncovered here where you could see that it was running through, because you can see the ground here, Jake. It's just littered with remnant quartz. And so, you know, maybe there's a vein over there, but you'd have to dig down to find it. But in a few years, if you have a wash or flood or something, it'll uncover itself like this vein. So maybe nobody ever seen this before. And maybe they have. Maybe they've checked it before. But that's kind of the mystery of the desert, because you can continually check it out and you really don't know. There's no way you can tell. But what I'm saying to you is, if you go out on the desert like me and old Jake here, and you're looking around for gold, why make sure that you're careful, because those old mine shafts and places, you know, Jake, I stopped and picked up the top of a coffee can down there.
I saw that.
I'm going to try to pull it out of my pocket here, and let's give it a proper inspection. Look at here. It's got a guy with a whip and looks like some mules or horses on it in Boston.
Look at that.
And what is that? Shapley? Shapley Coffee Company.
Shapley Coffee
Victor,
Company.
Victor
Coffee. Shapley Coffee Company out of Boston.
Man,
That's
that is
old, man.
That is really old.
That's old.
You know, I think I'm gonna hang on. I just found it laying right on the top.
That's a piece of
I
history,
didn't
you know?
need this metal
No.
detector to find that. We're working with the Fisher Gold Bug here. Jake and I did. It's about 2 miles in here. It's about 2 mile hike in here. I don't think you brought any water with you.
Oh yeah, well, I took a
It
good
didn't
drink.
look. It didn't look. It didn't look that far on the sectional map.
Yeah.
On the map that we have over there in the old pickup truck. It didn't look that far. So Jake and I thought we'd just walk in here, and of course we brought you along with us. We're glad you did. And this is at Victor
That's
Coffee
neat.
Company. Man, you find some of the neatest things out here in the desert. We'll get to poke around. Maybe we'll even find some gold. Now, see, I got this
Yeah.
theory. I got this theory, Jake, that, and I could be wrong. I might be right. Who knows? But I got this theory that these old miners, they brought their gold in to trade at the post office instead of the stage stop. Because a lot of those guys, they trusted the U.S. government back then, because that's back when people were a part of the government.
Yeah.
They weren't just the governed like a lot of times we feel like we are today. They were a part of the government, so they had a lot of trust in the government, and they bring their gold nuggets in and they trade them right there in the post office, and there's a guy had a little assay office behind it. If we can find that old post office. Now, the last time I was here was about 20 years ago, Jake.
Yeah.
And the old post office was still standing with the roof on it, but I haven't been back in a long, long time, and I think I can find my way back over there. And so that's what we're looking for, and we're taking a little break here. So I'm gonna take that with me. That's really
That's
a neat.
neat.
That's
Piece
a
of
really
history
neat
there,
thing.
bud.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get back to it there. I guess we've jawboned long enough, but that's kind of what it's about, folks. You don't have to be in any hurry. You know, we don't have any clock to punch out here, do we,
Sure
Jake?
don't.
We don't have any clock to punch, and this desert's
is
beautiful, man. These cactus, and you can see for 100 miles, and there's no people around or nothing.
No
God, it's
fog.
beautiful. It's a shame they're going to close this off someday, the people,
Yeah.
you know, because they don't have any environmental effect. It's thousands of miles out here, you know, and people have been using it for years, but I guess them environmentalists decided they wanted it all for themselves, Jake.
That's right.
But they don't have it yet, so we're going to enjoy it as long as we can. We're glad you're with us. Let's go on, Jake, because I think we got to go that way to find that old post
That-a-way.
office. So let's go,
Okay.
buddy. We're going to take a short break, and Jake and I are going to walk on over and see if we can find that post office. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a little bit. Don't you go away. Well, I think this is it, Jake.
That it?
Yep, that's the old post office, I believe. Now, hang on a second. Last time I was here, the roof was still on that building.
Yeah.
That's been 20 years ago, and it's fell down. I didn't have a metal detector with me the last time I was here, but I believe this was the old post office. I think over on the other side was the front, because let's go over and take a look. Now, this is the old office of Weaver, Arizona. Yeah, see that right there, Jake?
Yeah.
That right there, that is the old front door. See, that's the
Yeah,
frame
you
that
bet.
went around the front
Good
door.
frame.
Man, oh man, if this place could talk. See,
Oh, I
the
bet.
roof, it was in bad repair the last time I was here. But the roof is now down, and if you didn't know what you were looking for, you sure wouldn't know that this is it, would you? You wouldn't know that this was anything here. There's a piece of an old brick, and
How did Weaver
you know,
come
well,
about?
Pauline Weaver was a real famous guide back. He made it to California in the 1850s. Pauline did, and he was a real mountain man and well known all throughout California. And he led a lot of parties. He was a guide. Well, the president, or the president of the United States, President Polk at the time, had asked the Congress to allocate some money to get some parties guided up and to look at the Arizona territory and to look at this territory for gold. So Pauline Weaver, he took and led a group of people up Weaver Creek here now, and then he also led a group up Antelope Creek over on the other side where eventually the town of Stanton got going and all that gold mining. But they named Weaver after Pauline Weaver because that was things. When he died, Jake, there's a real interesting story about him. When he died, they wanted to take him in the house, and he was laying there suffering. Got shot by Indians. He got attacked by Indians, and he was laying there suffering. and they wanted to take him in the house to die, and he said no, he wanted to stay outside because he spent his whole life outside. Regardless of the weather or anything, he always stayed outside, and that they carried out his wish. And they say that he's buried over there at Stanton in the graveyard just outside of the big old dance hall and saloon over there. That they got a graveyard over there, and they say that's where Pauline Weaver was buried. And when Charlie Stanton died, Charlie Stanton was shot by the Lucero brothers towards the end of the century there, and because Charlie Stanton was such a crook, he was involved with the Lucero, well, with the Francisco Vega and Vega's gang, and they robbed and pillaged from the Mexican border all the way to Prescott, and finally met the U.S. Marshal over there, and he hung Vega, but the Lucero brothers was part of Vega's gang. They shot Charlie Stanton. The people at Stanton, Arizona didn't want Charlie to be buried in the same graveyard with a man of the statue of Pauline Weaver, so that's why they moved Charlie Stanton's grave up the creek there about a quarter mile. Well, let's get this metal detector out. What I'm going to do, folks, is Jake, he's pretty good expert on metal detectors, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Jake tell you how to tune one of these, and then I'm going to start looking around, see if we can't find something, because you know my theory. Now, I may be wrong, but I've done a lot of studying on history, Jake, and the old-time miners, well, they brought their gold up and deposited it into the post office, and a lot of times the mail was picked up by stage, and sometimes they put it with Wells Fargo, and sometimes they didn't, but them old-time miners was pretty cagey, and they didn't trust it to stage drivers. They knew that the U.S. Post Office would make it good for its citizens, because the U.S. Post Office stood behind their service back in them days, and so a lot of the old boys, and I'll bet you there was a lot of gold come through the door of this old post office, and if we get lucky, maybe some of it's still out there.
You never know.
You never know. That's what we're looking for, and you know, we're just poking around. You know, Jake and I, we run a lot of dirt over riffles and water and stuff like that, but it's always fun to get out in the desert for a day and take your metal detector, and God, it's peaceful out here, a million miles from anywhere, a long ways from that commute on Friday night, huh, Jake?
You bet.
Long ways from that commute. So why don't you show them something about how to tune one of these metal detectors up using the Fisher Gold Bug.
Basically, the biggest problems the folks out there and questions they have and problems they have with a metal detector is adjusting the ground balance. And what is the ground balance? And what you're trying to do with the metal detector is take the natural mineralization that's in the soil and null it out. Make it neutral. Make that's a neutral background, so you can detect nuggets, metal, coins, whatever through that soil to the maximum sensitivity. And that's what we do here. Like the Fisher Gold Bug is quite easy to ground balance, but basically when you turn her on is you use your ground reject on it, and going up and down to the ground, you'll get you adjust the ground balance to get an equal tone going up and down.
Same sound going up and down.
Then it's
If
neutralized.
you get a woo-woo coming up and you don't hear nothing going down, then what you want to do is you want to keep adjusting until you get the woo coming both ways. Now I'm not going to turn it on because I've got this one set up, and we're going to start doing a little digging. You got a tool to dig with?
I got me a chunk of stuff here. I like to carry little.
I'm going to turn this on.
I got me a piece of metal.
I'm going to turn this on, and we're going to start looking around here, Jake, and see if we can't find something.
Oh.
Now that's a piece of metal. That's laying right on the surface. I can see that, Jake. Dig that up and see what it is. That it's an old tin can. Well, you know, I'll tell you what. This tin can I got in my pocket. That's a nice. That's a souvenir. There's a nail.
You can tell.
Now you can listen. You know, if you're in tune and you're listening, you can hear. Now see, I've hit something there, Jake.
Yeah.
Now that's different. See, that's different than all this ground sound. Start digging right in there. By God, we might have something there, buddy. That's a good sound. Move your hand back with that metal. Let me
kick that thing. Kick that chunk out of there.
Let me kick it. There's something in there. Oh, look at that. I see what it is. It's a horseshoe.
Check that.
Well, that's a lucky horseshoe.
That's an old one too. Holy
yeah. Yeah, that's an old horseshoe.
Oh, rusted
old
up
lucky horseshoe.
We ought to put that of the old miner's hooch back at the buzzard.
Yeah. Well, let's look around here some more. Well, I got a little reading right here. Look at that. Look at, what the hell is this here? Oh man, Jake, look at
What is
that.
that?
That's got some gold in it, I believe. Look at that.
You're not kidding there, George.
Let's look around, see
That
if we
is
find any
gold,
more
buddy.
of that.
It's a piece of quartz with some gold in it.
Yeah, it's just a,
It's like a little
well, it's
broke
kind
off
of
the
a
vein.
kind of an old greenstone.
Yeah, but it's got quartz in the middle of it.
Do you
with
see
gold.
any more of it?
Boy, I don't see any, but I'm gonna look. You hold that. Let me start
That's
looking.
a
at it.
nice little specimen. I don't know if you can see that or
I
not,
can
but it's
see
got a little
that.
piece of gold sticking right in that rock. Huh.
Huh?
It's
right in the
kind of a
quartz.
green rock.
You can tell the tonal differences on your detector a lot of times with a little practice.
A lot of fun.
You
A lot
get
of
yourself
fun,
a
Jake.
nugget, and you get yourself a piece
Here's
of iron
another.
and pull tab and
Oh,
screws
I
and stuff.
dropped my glasses. Let me lay them up there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lay this. I got another piece here, I think, Jake. I don't see any gold on the outside of it, but
You never know.
look
Brick
at here.
gold.
Here's another piece of that green stuff. I got something right here too. Oh, that's a piece of metal. I
Yeah,
can see
yeah.
it. See it right there.
Well, you can tell your tonal differences.
Well, maybe
with
we'll find
practice.
maybe we'll find one of them old tobacco tins with gold in it, Jake, huh?
Hey, I'll tell you what.
Now I got
Oh, that's different. That's
I got
different,
something
buddy.
here. I got something in here somewhere. Oh, here, look here. Oh, it's a piece of tinfoil.
Well, you were right over here a little bit. Move it back over here.
Piece of tinfoil, I think, Jake.
That's a more.
Well, you
that's
get
a more
readings
solid
all over
signal.
the place over here.
I've listened to various tones of steel, iron, and all that kind of thing. Man, that's different. That's different. I'll get.
Take a handful of that and let's see if you got it in your hand, huh?
Let's get. Here. Lift it up a little
Let
bit.
me. That's another piece of that green stuff,
It sure
Jake.
looks like it.
That's another piece of that green stuff. Let me look at
that,
that. You
man.
can see the gold in it right there. See it?
Yeah. Yeah.
See it? Lay that up
What?
there with that.
It's enough of the. Yeah, we might hear something really.
Well, there's still something in there, Jake. Look under this rock. Look right here. Is that a piece of that stuff?
Here. Here. Let me get this dirt here. Uh-oh.
Oh, hey, look here. Look at this,
Oh,
Jake.
man.
Look at that one, buddy.
Holy smokes.
That's a nugget. That's not a piece of
man.
quartz. That's a nugget.
That's nice, man. God.
Look at that.
What's my language? You get excited and you get kind of carried away out here, you know?
Man, that's something to get excited about.
Dig
Look
some
at
more.
it.
Come on, move on. Let me dig some more here. There's something else. That doesn't sound quite right, but let me check it out.
Let me balance
I
this
think-
detector.
I think what you have here is a hot rock down here. That's
Well,
what
dig it
sounds
out.
like.
Dig it out. It might be a big nugget big as your fist in there, bud.
Well, you never know. You
Look at
remove
that.
that
Look
hot.
What is that?
It's a rock.
I'm
It
still
sounds
getting.
like a hot rock, George. It really does.
Well, check it out there, Jake.
There's.
Man, we should have brought a shovel with us.
Boy, this dirt's too hard for even a shovel.
Look at that nugget, Jake. That'll make you feel like digging.
Man.
Look at that, buddy.
You got that right.
Huh?
You got that right, man. That's nice.
Just put that down there and let's see how that sounds on that detector.
Okay, put it right here. Nice, smooth tone.
Yeah.
It's you practice that way, and that's what you do. You practice with a nugget.
Pick that
a
one
nail.
up before we lose it again,
There it
okay?
is. Oh, we ain't gonna lose that. I can spot. Ain't gonna lose that, man. Here, I'll put it in my pocket.
Boy, these new fandango metal detectors they got sure are nifty. And the old timers, they didn't have that ability to swing those detectors and find that gold the way that we do nowadays. And there's a lot of people finding a lot of gold that way, and sure interesting to listen to the old buzzer and his techniques and little tips and tricks. And if you like them, we'll be back here. We'll be giving you some more of them. There's a lot of real gems that guy knew, so stay tuned and we'll see you back here for some more prospecting for gold. welcome to the show. We got some more of the old buzzard, the guru of prospecting, going to show you how to get some of that yellow metal gold. He's going to be dredging in the far north, secret little creek up there with my brother Perry. You might have known him from the Prospecting America shows, and this is a doozy of a show, so enjoy.
Okay, Perry, we got this big old boulder over here. This is a real shallow creek here, you know. The bedrock's right down there. We're almost, well, I touched it right over here on this other side of the hole. I tell you what, let's do. Let's take a little break, and I want to talk to the folks about the dredge, okay? Let's explain that to them. And
come back and get that boulder.
Yeah, we'll come back and move that boulder. Let's go over and shut the dredge off and talk to them a little bit. All right. Let me shut the dredge off here and we'll take us a little break. I got Perry here with me today, and we're out in this little creek. Now this particular creek, Perry's got some really unusual things about it. The reason that we chose this creek today is because we've known about this for a long time, and the bedrock is real shallow. It runs clear across this whole thing. And so we're not going very deep to get down to the bedrock. Let's show them how our dredge works. I'll show you how that works. And this is Perry, he's a mining engineer, and my son, we're just out here having a good time today.
Yeah, well, basically the way we chose this spot is I got up on the top of the hill and kind of surveyed the river valley, and what I saw was what looked like an old channel running along the side of the hill. And we followed that old channel down, and it all chokes together right here at this point. And so I think right in here is probably the best gold, because it looks like the old channel and the new channel and everything's all washed and coming together right here. So we're punching a hole down to test the bedrock to see what it looks like down there, to see what kind of color there is.
Now there's some unique things that you'll run into when you're shallow dredging. Some of the things that you're going to find when you're shallow dredging, you might notice that we've got our foot valve in a bucket there. Now the reason that we've done that is so that we've got enough water for our foot valve so that it doesn't suck air, and another reason is to keep the sticks and rocks and stuff from coming out and going up through our pump and damaging the impellers in our pump.
One thing I noticed about that bucket also is it prevents a vortex from forming.
Absolutely, yeah, and
water.
Keeps it from sucking air up through there. Then let's just explain a little bit about the dredge. We've got, this is where we suck our water into our pump, right there.
This has a flapper valve on it so that water goes in but won't go out. It's called a foot valve, and the water comes up into the pump, sucks up here, it's pressurized in this pump housing here, and then pumps out here. High pressure water comes out of here and goes into our venturi down here, which causes the vacuum in the nozzle down there.
See my nuts coming off there, Perry. Just tighten it up just a little bit.
Don't want to lose that.
So once it comes into the venturi, that creates a high pressure suction, and then we can suck all the rocks and stuff up through the large hose and the gravel, and that's what we're doing. And that comes up and comes through our header box and into the business end of our dredge.
Right.
And of course we're using a Honda pump. I like These Hondas are made in the United States now, a lot of them, and we're using a Honda pump with a high pressure pump on it, a Honda engine with a high pressure pump on it. That flows into this header box, and then the header box, what we've got here, the material comes off the header box and it goes over a punch plate. And we're going to take this apart in a few minutes and clean up. And it comes over a punch plate,
rock first.
And then it comes over a punch plate, and then it runs over a series of riffles, and then on expanded metal. And under the expanded metal we have nomad, and I'll show you what that is. Under here we have a particular kind of matting that is available, and it's got these little squares in it. You know something, Perry? I think I see a nugget in here. Look at that right there. Ha 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 ha! We're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah,
Isn't that a nugget?
look at that.
That's a nugget right there.
Yeah.
I'll be doggone. Looky there. Hey, well, you got a bottle? We'll put that one in it. Look at that, by gosh. And we haven't even cleaned up yet. This looking pretty good,
Yeah.
you know. Well, we just touched down on that bedrock. I'm kind of anxious to move that big rock down there, and we'll see what's going on with
I
it.
noticed there's a lot of hematite in this material.
Yeah, well,
Lot of handy
let's
stuff.
explain what hematite is. Why don't we get a piece out? Right here's a little piece of hematite. I'll just pick a little piece out of the dredge here. We find garnets too, but this is a piece of hematite. And won't you explain what hematite is for
Well,
me, Barry?
what it is, it's an iron sulfide material. It's mainly composed of iron, and it's a lot heavier than your regular gravels and your creeks. So when you're finding this material, you know that there's higher specific gravity material in your gravel. There's a good sign that there's gold there. Also, there's quite a bit of black
So
stone in there,
this
too, I
is
think.
heavy material, and it's an indication then that
Yeah,
there's
it's an
heavy
indication
material
that
there.
there's a better stratification of high specific gravity material.
We'll take a look in the sluice box, see if we got any gold. Awful lot of water coming through that dredge there, Perry.
Oh yeah. Hey, I see some nuggets in there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. How about
Looking
that?
good.
Don't get much better than that, my man. Look at
Right.
that. Huh? We got a good spot. There's one there.
Looks like
There's
we got a
another one
couple of them
there.
in there.
I see 3 here. Boy, look at that big old piece of hematite too.
Wow, that's a good sized
Yeah.
chunk.
I don't know what else we got in there. We'll take a look though, huh?
Well, we'll just clean this sucker up, huh? Let's
Yeah.
do this thing here, huh? Little wing nut there. Get that undone.
Here, let me lay them nuggets up there on top for you so you can take a look at them, huh? I got them here in my hand. There's a nice one there and a nice
Set them
one
up
there.
here on
huh?
top of the.
There's another little one down here.
Yeah, we'll just leave that one in there for now.
Okay. Put them up there. A lot of water going through. Here's another one right here. Okay, now this here, what this is this is the punch
Yeah, I
plate
see
that sets
gold
up
up
in
in
there. Do you?
Yeah.
Oh man, look at all the gold in there.
Yeah.
Well, let's pull that plate out here so they can see it. This is your punch plate here, and the material comes down and stays on that. And then let's pull it right out. Oh, looky here. Take a look in here. Now, if you can see this, look at the gold in here. Look at it stuck. Here's a piece up here and a piece there, little piece there, and oh man, a whole bunch of it. And who knows what else we got there. Well,
Looking nice.
let's take and just dump that right off into a gold pan. And
I got my gold pan over on my bike. I'll be right
all right, go get it, and then we'll check in with our fine flour gold. Should be down in this too, and we'll just wash this rascal right out here and see what we got. See, this is a matting, and the material that comes up, bubbles up, goes down through the punch plate, lays into this, and then the flour gold, of course, with the much water that's in there, it'll be washed down into this nomad, and it'll be staying in there. Let me get the bucket over here, Perry, and I'll give you some water. We'll just go through this cleanup, and we'll try to explain to you what we're doing. Dump the rock out of it there. We'll try to explain to you what we're doing while we're doing it. I'm going to wash the mat off here into the gold pan. And this stuff now that we got here, this is what we boil. Look at that gold hang up in there. It doesn't want to come out at all. Let's pick another piece or two out and lay up there with our other nuggets.
Oh, I'll have a can
Boy,
down here.
Perry, that's a good hole. You know,
Yeah,
that's a really
really
good hole.
surprised.
God, I'm telling you, that's something else. A guy wrote in the other day, he saw one of our shows, and he told me, he said, I saw you drop some material out. Look at there. I think you got most of it. Let's turn it over.
I see all kinds of fine stuff in there too.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll flip it over when we get the sluice box cleaned up a little bit.
All right.
I can pan these nuggets out real fast here.
Okay, well, why don't you do it over there where we don't lose them, and I'll go ahead and pull some of this stuff out here. Now, normally we'd have to have a safety pan on that,
But I'm just getting the top rocks
but
off. And I'm gonna take a look.
as you would guess, Perry and I are no different than anybody else. We come out here today and didn't bring but one gold pan with us.
Look at all those.
So we make
nuggets in
mistakes.
there.
Oh
My
man,
goodness,
look
look
at
the
that.
fine gold too.
Oh
Wow.
wow, look at it all stringing along in here. Look at that, would you?
Wow.
Look at those. Look at that gold. Ha, dog. Man, oh man, oh man of Shevitz. Look at that.
Well, if that spot continues, we're going to have a great day.
Yeah, we sure are. Look at there. There's several $50 nuggets in there too. This one over here probably $100. That one you pulled out a while ago is probably a $50 nugget too.
Look at all them pieces in there.
Now, where we're at, this place is listed in the GPAA Claims Guide. You know, if you're not a member of GPAA, you can sure do so. We're going to pull the matting out here and show you how this works. You'll want to carry two of them with you. Let me see that screwdriver again. I got it right here.
Chunky stuff in there too.
There we go. Okay, and we'll pull that over.
That's pretty impressive there. Look at that.
Yeah,
stuff
look
in there.
at it. Boy,
Oh,
that's
there's
nice.
another piece in there. I missed him.
Look at that. Look at all that fine stuff in there too.
Let me pan this.
Pan that down a little more for us. Let's see how much more got down this sluice, because there was two nuggets, and I think there's another one right there. I believe I thought I might have been looking at a rock. But you know, after a while, you get to seeing gold everywhere when you're out here. Sometimes it ain't where you see it. But we're having a nice day out here, ain't we, Perry?
Well, I like the looks of this.
You need to get
Oh,
out.
Man, oh man, look at the gold in here.
You need to get out there once in a while in God's country and do a little gold mining. Yeah, look at that. That's pretty nice.
Yeah,
That's
and
pretty
we haven't
nice.
carpet yet.
Yeah. Well, let's take, now this is nomad. This is what they call miner's moss. Okay. Now this miner's moss, let me explain a little something about this miner's moss. This is an open back miner's moss, and it's a little bit easier to clean. They come in two types, the closed back and the open back. Look at that little piece of gold right there. See it?
I hope not. That's at the end of the sluice.
Yeah, well, that's a piece of gold, all right. There's a lot of water running through here. Anyway, look at all the hematite on there, and this miner's moss comes in two types, the open back and the closed back. Now, I kind of like the open back because it's easier to clean, but the gold really gets down in there. And what I want you to take a look at is the amount of material. I'm gonna dump this in the bucket. Let me get some water in the bucket. But the amount of material that is held with that nomad, it's just incredible. I don't know who the guy was that called it miner's moss, but that's what a lot of us call it. But that's not the trade name. It's 3M
It's
nomad.
made out of a vinyl round. It's a round vinyl wiry like substance, and it's weaved into that carpet. And it, you know, another thing that's really impressive about it is how it really holds up to abrasion too. I'm really impressed with its ability to withstand all those rocks going over a long period of time, and the way that the gold seems to penetrate and flow through the nomad. A lot of these carpets, the gold will sit on top and get packed with black sand, and pretty soon the gold will start just sliding right on down your sluice box. But with nomad, the gold penetrates and sits on the very bottom of it and doesn't move once it's down there, and that's what I really like about
it
that stuff.
it really hangs up in there. Well, let me drain this off, and I'll pour this into your gold pan. I'll just show you the amount of material that was in that little piece of carpet.
You want to get this here?
See all the material that was in that carpet? Now,
With this.
let's dump this in and let you pan this down and see what's in it, and then we'll clean that other carpet, okay?
Okay.
Let me get some water for you.
I think I can get it here.
Now, normally on these concentrates, Perry and I are running a test out here today. What we did is we brought our dredge out. It's a lightweight dredge. We wanted to blow a little hole down there to bedrock and do some testing, and I'm really impressed with this creek. I don't think there's been much dredging done in it before, if any, and it's probably made a new cut here since the last time anybody was in here anyway.
Well, I would bet you that if you went upstream too far, you'd run out of the gold, though.
Yeah, you could have, and I think that's probably the mistake that a lot of fellas have made, is that they've gone too far upstream, because we're down pretty close to the mouth of this little stream. and we blew a hole down here, and we hit bedrock only a couple of feet under. And so we're just running a test. But when we come back with our wetsuits, you can bet that we're going to have a tub here, and we're going to pan into that tub. I want to pan this down for you, just to give you an idea of what we got in here.
It's just loaded with black sand. An incredible amount of black sand.
Yeah, it's holding the heavy material in there because now he's doing a rocking motion on his panning there, folks, just to let you know what he's doing. Get in a little calmer water. And see, he's getting a good slurry action, and then he's taking the lighter stuff off the top, and then he'll take and stratify the material again. It'll only stratify to a certain depth, but that lighter material come up and it'll lay on top, and then you can stratify it again. See, and that's what he's doing there. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the dredge. I've got another piece of carpet that this particular manufacturer puts underneath the Nomad. I'm not sure how effective that's going to be, but we'll take a look at it here and see what we get. You know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not a member of the Gold Prospectors Association, it's sure you can sure take it from old Buzzard here that you've got a great opportunity to join, and you can take my invitation on that.
I think the nuggets are probably coming out of that limestone.
When you do join the club, you get a gold pan like Perry's using here, and the use of all these claims. This claim here is available to you. And if you find this one, I'm not going to tell you where it is because I don't want to start a gold rush out here. But if you do find it, a good tip for you is work the lower end of the creek. And when you're out there working, you'll find it. Well, look at all that fine gold in there, and heavy black sand. And there's a lot of gold in that black sand. Now, this is the kind of stuff you're going to find every weekend you go out. You won't hit those nuggets. Let me tell you, I've been prospecting for 30 years. And I knew that I had a real good suspicion at this spot here because there's lots of these prospects, and I'll be honest with you, I've been out here before. I knew there was pretty good gold in this creek, and that's why I brought the dredge out here and why I brought them out here to do this show, because I knew there was pretty good gold here. This is in the GPAA Mining Guide. You can find it. Like I said, I can't tell you where it is because I don't want to start a virtual gold rush out here, you know, and then you get too many people and you get an impact on the environment. But if you find it on your own, it's one of the claims that's in there, and a real good tip for you is work the lower end of the claim, and it's in the 94 guide. Huh, Perry?
Definitely in there.
Yep, it's in there, and it's a small creek. Bedrock is fairly shallow. Okay, you want to dump it right in that pan, or you want to put that stuff in the bucket? Let's wash that stuff in the bucket, and then you can see what's in this lower mat. And then I think what we'll do is we'll hightail it back down to the house, and we'll get us some, why don't you just dump that right in here. We'll get us some wetsuits. I got my wetsuit in the bag down there.
Yeah, I'd like to
go back down to the pickup truck.
See if there's any bigger gold down in some of them cracks.
We're about, well, I don't want to give you any more hints as to where we're at here, but we're not too far away. And I tell you what, one thing you're going to know, I'll give you one tip when you get there: the water's really cold, and it's not in California, okay? But it's in the lower 48, but it's not in California, okay? And it's one of the GPA claims, so I'll give you a little tip. So I'll just go ahead and wash her out there, Perry. Yeah.
Take some water from this bucket.
Let me turn it over here. Okay, wash that off of there. Now you want to use a lot more care in cleanup than we are. Like I said, we just come out here to do a test, and when we come back, we're going to have all the stuff that we need for cleanup. Let me pan this one down for you. I shouldn't let you have all the fun. Okay. What I'm doing here is I use a little different method than Perry. I keep the material slurried as I go, and I just kind of run that material off there, and I'll pan that down pretty far, because most of the gold, if we have any, should have been up in that Nomad, and there was quite a bit in there, but there might have been some that got plumb through it. And on top of that indoor-outdoor carpet, a lot of people use that indoor-outdoor carpet. It's cheap, and it's available most places. That nomad, that stuff runs $1 an inch, or $3 an inch, I think. Look at the hematite in here, Perry. Nice big old piece, a lot of black sand. Let's see what we got here. Oh yeah,
it's got good
yeah,
color in there.
Look at all that gold in there. Look at that. Look at that nice big chunk right there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now we got to clean the rest of this thing out.
Well,
here.
you know, I think if we hit that spot here, look, here's a garnet. There's a little garnet in there. You know, there's other things that you'll find besides the gold, folks. You'll find garnets and all kinds of things. Make sure that you get your.
We could have missed some nuggets up in here.
Yeah. Well, let's wash it out. We're not missing it. We're not done cleaning up here yet, folks. I'm gonna put that little garnet in my mouth there and check it out a little bit more later. Okay, what you need to do, Perry, we'll tip that sluice box over sideways. What you say, let's go back and get our wetsuits and come back and do some serious dredging here. And I'll bring a tub up and we'll finish that up. Yeah, look at that. Man, oh man, oh man, look at you. You don't get no better than this, son. Huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's some nice jewelry nuggets there. That's what it's all about.
That little creek that old Buzzard's working's not too far from where the GPA runs their Alaska trip up there, and that's a pretty rich creek. That whole area's got quite a bit of gold, and we run that trip up there every year, and you're invited to come along. You've probably seen the commercials here, and we enjoy having you, and we'll be right back here again for another one of these gold prospecting shows. Hope you learned something, and I'm sure you'll learn something. You keep watching, because there's a lot more to come, and the old Buzzard had a lot of tips and tricks, and so we'll see you back here again later. Well, welcome to the show. We got the Buzzard, and he's going to be joined by a friend of his, old Luther from Tennessee, and they're going to be doing some gold dredging up around the Arctic. And this is an interesting show. If you ever wondered about gold dredging, here they are, Luther and the Buzzard.
Dredging for gold. There ain't nothing like it in the world, I'll tell you. Boy, that's something down there, huh, Lou?
Sure
The
is.
water a little bit cold. We're sure having some time down there. You know, there's a clay layer down there, and I don't know if there's bedrock below it or if there's another gravel below it, but boy, there's sure a lot of nice gold. You see that gold on top of it? I brought me up a sample of quartz, stuck it here in my wetsuit. That looked a lot prettier underwater than it does up here, though. I'll sit down there, Luther, and let's visit with some of the folks at home there a little bit. Get my foot out from underneath here. You know, a guy's pretty agile underwater, but he gets up here on the surface, he really struggles around with this stuff, but it's a lot of fun. You're from Tennessee, huh, Luther?
Yeah, I'm from Coker Creek.
Coker Creek, a lot of gold down there in Tennessee?
Yeah, it's quite a little bit. It's mostly little flakes, small pieces.
Yeah, this is Luther Smith, and Luther and I get out and do a little dredging once in a while together. We haven't been out as often as we'd like, but we get out once in a while and dredge for gold. A lot of people say there isn't any gold left anymore, Luther. What do you think about that?
They just don't know the truth.
They don't know the truth. There's a lot of gold left. As a matter of fact, the geologists say that less than 5% of the available gold's ever been taken out of the United States, and there's a lot of gold in Tennessee yet, isn't there?
Sure is.
And Georgia, North Georgia, and North Carolina, and Virginia, and all through that part of the country, there's a big gold belt, and a lot of gold runs through there. That's a real interesting looking piece of quartz, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
sure
showed
is.
that to you underwater. You didn't get the message on my watch, did you? Did you see that message I had rolling there for you on that
No.
watch underwater?
No, I didn't.
I tried to show that to you.
I thought you was asking me what time it was.
No, Tom, he programmed a message on my watch that's kind of comical, so I thought I'd show that to you underwater. What we've got down there, and this is so often happens, is that we've got a nice layer of hard pack right on top of the clay layer, and you can see the little tiny flakes laying right on top of the clay, and occasionally we pick out a nice little picker of gold out of that. And boy, did you see the fish down there?
Yeah,
you
lots
know,
of 'em.
you got pets made out of them, got them named. They come and they hang around there while we're dredging, and they pick up anything that we disturb. They pick up the food.
Yeah,
that's
if there's
there.
a little grub or worm or fly or something, well, they get right after it.
Yeah, they sure do. No, we're gonna go back down and do some dredging, and just let you know what we're doing. We're working in this little creek, and we've got us a pretty good hole working there, and we bring the material up and we suck it through a gold dredge. It comes up, you know, we're using a 6-inch dredge. We got Jake tending for us, and the material comes up. Let me get over there and just give you an idea how this dredge works. These are our pumps, and they suck the water in and force it through a venturi and a high pressure, and that comes up, and then our big 6-inch hose just works like a vacuum cleaner down there, Luther, and Luther and I go down and we take turns working the nozzle and pitching rocks out of the way for one another, and we don't work hard doing it, but we get our exercise for sure, and we throw those rocks out of the way, and then we work that, and the first time it rains, why, this hole, you won't be able to see that it's here. The water will come down through here and fill it back in on us, but it's a pretty good deal. And so these suction dredges, they don't take anything out of the stream or add anything to them, and then what happens is as we vacuum the material up, the gravel runs out over this sluice box, and the heavy gold, which is heavy, will drop down into the riffles, and the lighter rocks will go out over the top of it, leaving the gold concentrate down in the riffles of our sluice box. And the little tiny particles of gold, we've got a grizzly in there, and by that I mean we've got a screen that sizes the material, and then only 1/4-inch material will go through that screen. And the 1/4-inch material drops down in this box. We've got an undersluice, and that means that that sluice with the 1/4-inch material comes down underneath the other material and allows that smaller material to settle out. So the fine gold that we get, the real tiny particles of gold, will separate out and drop down into those riffles, and then the larger gold, of course, is caught in the head riffles in the upper part of our box, and that's where we find our nuggets. And the dredges work pretty good, and a lot of guys that took up scuba diving, I used to dive commercially, and I know you used to dive too, and we'd go out and scuba dive and look at fish, and now we're able to take that information that we got, you know, and the diving techniques that we used, and put them to a practical use of getting gold. I know you get a lot of gold, Luther. What's the biggest strike you've ever made with the gold dredge?
Well, we got about 1.5 ounces in 20 minutes.
About 1.5 ounces in 20 minutes, and what's the most that you've ever got in a season?
I guess about 7.5 ounces.
Yeah, I hit a hole one time on the Stanislaus, Luther, and took out over 800 ounces in 2 weeks.
I know it. That just boggles my mind.
Boy, I'll tell you, that only happens once in a lifetime, and I really feel fortunate that happened. Anyway, this is Luther Smith from Coker Creek, Tennessee, and any of you guys that get back that way, well, be sure and look him up, because old Luther's a good dredger, and he'll point you in the right direction to find some gold. Luther, we're going to bring Jake on here in a few minutes, and Jake's going to give us a whole bunch of different places that you can go. Hopefully a place right close to you, whether you live in California, Oregon, Washington, Tennessee, or Alabama, or wherever. Jake's got a place where you can go dredging, keep all the gold you find, or go out and high banking or whatever. And Luther and I are going to get back in the river and find that big one. I saw one down there, I think, as big as that rock we're standing on. Luther, let me help you on with that weight belt. And Jake, we'll get them engines fired up and we'll get back in the water, and maybe they'll break and go to a commercial while we're in there. Then we'll come back and see if we got any gold. Okay, Luther, let's go over and take a look here and see what we got. How we looking there, Jake? You think we got anything in the box? Let's open it up and take a look.
I see some.
I tell you what, we could see some of the bedrock down there.
I see a lot of fine stuff in the mat, but there we go. I can see it right off the bat.
Here, look at this. Look at this. Woo, doggies, look at that.
There's another one.
Let me get that one out there and hand it to you, man. We've been down that cold water. It's about time we found something, huh?
Look at the flake right there.
Look at here.
Oh, man, look at
I tell you, it don't get any better than this, Luther. It don't get any better than that. Let me get this other one out here and lay it in your hand.
Look at all the little flakes here laying on that
Pick that one out, Jake. You don't have to get them.
What's the matter?
Look at that big piece of hematite. You see that hematite there? Look at that there, man. Now look at that gold. Where's another one?
I can see it all through this mat here. There's a piece of hair all through
We're
here.
going to have a good cleanup. Who said all the gold been taken out of this country? What's that nugget there? That's worth a couple of $100, huh?
Sure is.
Maybe $3. And this one over here is worth $75.
Yeah.
We didn't get skunked today.
Well, it's loaded in here. You look at this
There's some
mat,
little stuff.
all kinds of
man,
gold in
look
there.
at all that fine gold. I thought you said you saw another one in there. There.
Well, I hand you just said,
Look at all them little pieces.
Look at all the little pieces in there.
Oh, man, that's great. Well, listen.
Super.
What we got down there, Jake, is we got this clay layer, and Luther kind of thinks that maybe it's a decomposed bedrock, that there isn't any gravel down below it. And it's kind of a decomposed. It's got gravel down in it a ways, and I think what we got to do is rig us up a flusher and put on this dredge. Now let me tell you what a flusher is for the guys that's watching out there. A flusher is a high-powered water, and we got one over here set up, and that's on a garden hose, and then we can just take it down there and turn it on and blow that stuff up, and we get a nice area eat out down there. I think we're going to get a lot of gold out of that. Luther and I were talking about Tennessee earlier, Jake.
Yeah.
We said we was going to bring you on, that you had some places. Jake's got some places where we can go mining. A lot of places the GPAA has that you can go and keep all the gold you find, and some of them you can use a dredge this size. Now this is a 6-inch dredge, and it's pretty big, and when you're out there using one of these dredges, you got to be real careful. And you know, you're not going to find the kind of gold that we do the first time that you go out, because a lot of times, you know, we've been at it a long time, and so has Luther. But if you stay with it, you'll find some gold. And I tell you where the payday is, and all this fine gold down here where this the stuff comes over, and we got probably 4 or 5 times as much of this little flour gold as we got the big gold.
Well, old Luther and the buzzard. Somebody told me one time they saw that and it looked like Shamu and the Loch Ness Monster coming up out of the water there. But we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to go out to one of Buzzard's secret creeks, and maybe he'll tell you where it's at.
Now the main thing you want to remember is don't take too big a sample, because if you get too big a sample, you're going to start losing some of it, and it takes you so long to pan it. So we're just going to take out a couple of shovels full here, and then when we want to heap our box plumb full, heap that old pan plumb full is when we go back down there to start running it through our sluice. Let's take one more sample, make sure that we're getting some pretty good gold before we commit ourselves to that spot. And that's the way you do it. You sample around. Now we were lucky that I was able to set right down there and find some pretty good gold in the first spot. And maybe we didn't. I'm going to take this second pan just to make sure. Let's go through this process again. See? We take this upper pan and we shake that real good like that. You see that? You see that bit of trash I threw out of the pan, that piece of paper or cellophane or whatever it was? I pick up a lot of trash when I'm out here and carry it out of here and put it up there in that dumpster, because this is God's living room down here, and by golly, you don't want to be throwing your trash down here, folks. If you're all them so-called environmentalists, if they really want to do something for the environment, instead of trying to lock everybody out of the public land, well, tell them go pick up some trash and carry it out. Now we're going to take and go through this again. Make sure there's no gold in here until oh, look out, lost my damn gold pan. I got to go chase that down the stream. Well, I got that pan. Let that sucker get away from me. But I saved the pan, lost the gold out of it though. But I didn't lose what I got in my snuffer bottle. I still got a little bit in here. And you can hear it in there. So it hadn't been a total loss here. Didn't lose that gold pan. But boy, she's sure clean. Well, I tell you what, let's do. Let me dump that stuff there. Anything can happen when you're out here prospecting, folks. It can happen to me. You want to be extremely careful. You don't fall and break a leg or something. Let's go up and get some more material. And this time, instead of fooling around there with that gold pan, I'm going to take it up and run it through the sluice box. So we'll just go ahead and heap that old pan plumb full. Well, if I keep getting close to losing pans like that, I'm going to want to send off for 2 or 3 of them specials that GPAA's got going, get me some more free pans. I tell you what, that's a good idea, because you will lose a pan from now and then, and you know, I've lost some. I was able to catch that one, but I've lost some pans. Let's put this material through the sluice box, and I believe that that you can write into the club if you don't need to. Well, what we're doing now is we're just taking this material and we're just running it through kind of slow. Now we'll wash off those rocks. You notice that this time I'm not screening the material, see, because I'm just kind of washing it off. It doesn't hurt to screen it going through a sluice box. As a matter of fact, that's pretty good, but you don't really have to on this kind of material. We got some sand here and we got some gravel. I don't want to put it through too fast. Just let her kind of wash through my sluice box there, you know, and we'll run that down. And then with the sluice box, see what we can do with the sluice box, we can run a volume of material. You know, if we pan that out, well, that's 2 or 3 pans of material there to pan it out. And see, this way we can just run it through the sluice box. If we're close, generally what I do is I carry a couple 5-gallon buckets, and if I come back down here, if we get some pretty good gold, and I just kind of work these riffles a little bit and let that material go right on through there. And it's going through pretty nice through that box. And the way we got her set up there, it's tilted a little bit, but that rock kind of wrenches it back, flattens the box out. And over here we're working real nice, catching the material down underneath the riffles there. And so what we'll do is we'll just go back and get us another pan of that stuff. Being as I don't have a bucket with me today, I'm just out here kind of messing around, and it don't get much better than this out here in God's country. Do a little prospecting, you know, and I'm having a good time. Hope you are. Well, let's go on down and get some more of that material. Maybe we can come up with some gold. That's what we're looking for, folks. In case you just tuned in, why, we're looking for the mother lode out here, me, old Buzzard, and you. I'll go down and get some more material. Well, this is pan number 14 here. Pans are getting a little smaller, and I'm getting a little tired or getting a little hungry is what I'm getting here. And beans are going to taste better. You know, this morning for breakfast, them beans probably wouldn't taste too good, but by God, they're sounding better all the time. We'll run this one through here and see what we come up with. And I think, by golly, after I've got, generally I take a lot of time, you know, and I'll work a lot of material through. A lot of times, you know, we make it look pretty easy here on the Prospector Show, but you know, we do a lot of digging out here that you don't get to see at home. Now, I'm going to run this material, give it a chance to work its way down through here. I'll kind of help it there a little bit with my hand, and I'm going to take this big rock off. And we don't have a whole lot of material in here, but hopefully we got some gold. That ain't gold. Now, I'm going to move some of this material out of the lower end of the box down here, and we'll just kind of work this stuff on out here. Let that old sluice do her job. And if we're lucky, what'll happen is the gold is heavy, and it'll drop in, and that larger and lighter material will flow right on out down here in the tailings. Now, I'm going to take the box, and I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to dump it in that gold pan right there. And hopefully we won't lose any gold that's in here. Now that's our concentrates. And we're going to pop this box open here, take a little look-see if we got any larger gold. Okay, so we'll just pop this up here like so. And looky right here, look it right here. Look right there. I see some gold right there. I don't know if you can see it. Looky here, and look on this side over here. Look at them beauties right there. See them? Now, we don't put them in the sucker bottle. We put them in the tongue-in-cheek, you know. That's what that old boy said on that chewing tobacco commercial. He said you just tuck that between your tongue and cheek and make you feel so good, and I'll tell you that gold does. Now, don't swallow it. There's another piece there. Look at that one. See it? See it showing up there? Well, we ain't been out here working for nothing.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about making a bloopers reel, and that was one that would definitely make the bloopers there, where his pan takes off down the creek. You could see it there waiting for it. Oh, you could see it, but he couldn't. So we're sure glad you tuned in here, and we're going to be giving you some more of the old Buzzard show. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again. Well, welcome to Prospecting for Gold. We've got another great installment for you lined up. We got George Buzzard Massey, and he's going to be looking for that yellow metal gold going back into an old placer cave. And it's going to be an interesting one. So without further ado, here he is, the old Buzzard.
Okay, I want to let you know what's going on here. I've hiked down into this area, and I'm doing a little prospecting today. You know, I may set up a high banker, I might do some gold dredging, I might do a little hydraulic, and I don't know yet, but what I'm doing is a little prospecting. And it's always good to do some prospecting. Now, I've walked way down in here into this river, and I'm going to tell you something about where this is at. You know, the mining guide for GPA has got a lot of places listed in it. And we're in California. I'm going to leave it up to you to find it in the mining guide. But we're in Northern California, and we're down on the river doing a little testing around and a little walking, you know, here and there, and checking everything out. And I found these old caves up just not too far back up from the river, but in the brush. And normally it's all grown in, but I was able to find them back up here, and I'm going to go in and take a look. And there's some really interesting things. We're going to see if we can find a little gravel in it to dump something in our bucket and carry it down to the stream and pan it out. And what we're doing is we're prospecting the whole area. So we've taken a nice day here and hiked in. It's quite a hike to get down in here. And before I decide whether I'm going to bring a dredge in, I'm going to have to do a few things. I'm going to have to check the book, you know, the mining guide, find out if dredging season's open and what the permits are like. Usually they're real simple to fill out, and all of that's in the book. So these are some of the things that we're talking about. But I got in the pickup this morning, drove up here and hiked down into this place and did a couple of samples over there by the creek, a couple of panning. Then I got back up here in the brush and I found this cave. We're going to go in and take a look. And one of the interesting things that I found about this area, this cave, is first of all, this whole area was mined back in the 1850s and 60s, again during the 1930s. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, there was twice as much gold taken out of California during the 1930 Depression years as there was during the 1850 gold rush days. A lot of people don't know that, and there's a lot of gold left out there. And chances are in that mining guide there's something close to you. But let's take a look here. You'll see that there's quartz veins running through this old limestone. And these limestone formations that have pitched in here, I got the hunch that this is probably, and from the history of the area, shows that these limestone intrusions were pushed up here, and they're all hollowed out here from water and other kind of erosion, and they've created these kind of caves back in here. And so what I think that's happened is that when the earth kind of pitched this stuff up, this was the bottom of an old ancient river, maybe an ancient tertiary river stream, and then as it changed and this new river come in, it's washed this stuff out, and if we're lucky it'll have concentrated some of it down in the bottom. But these quartz veins within this limestone is really interesting. Let's take a look over here. I'll show you some other stuff. It looked like the old timers dug in here some too, because here's some old timbers back over here. We got some timbers. These are sawed timbers. Now, I don't know whether that they left these timbers in here just to keep them in out of the weather and keep them dry, and they were using them in here or what, but they could have been keeping them in here for firewood or whatever. But there's evidence of a lot of diggings here, very old diggings from back in the 50s. Let me, or back in the 1850s. Let me pump my lantern up here. I carried that over in the bucket, and I'll pump that lantern up, and we're going to go back in the back of this old cave here, and I found some stuff back in there that might prove to be real interesting for gold. You know, gold is like a bear; it's where you find it. And I want you to remember that when you go back in these places, be real careful. Take somebody with you, and they're dangerous. And I don't recommend that you go in a place like this at all. We do it. We make it look pretty simple on the GPAA program, but you want to be really careful when you do this kind of stuff if you're out there. Now, we're going to go back and take a look. Let me just take my shovel with me as we go back in, and we'll take a look at that material, because if we can find some river washed gravel back in this old mine, this could be really something, because it looks like to me that this was a natural mine, and probably what they did is they followed the quartz vein in as they went in through this limestone, and they mined it out and brought it out. And also they might have been mining the gravel. You know, you never know. Sometimes back in these old mines, sometimes what they did is that they worked out the placer gravel that was laying right in this would be just tight full of gravel, because this was the bottom of an old river channel at one time. And so they might have mined the placer gravel out of here, and that's what they were following. Or they could have been following one of those quartz veins. But we're going to go back in and take a look, me and you, and see what we can find back in here. Okay, now we're going to go back in this old cave. You see all this limestone down here, and I got a suspicion that what they did is that they worked the placer out. Now, I don't know if there were any Chinese in this country, but you see, we got a lot of river rock back in here, and looks like an old hose running in there. And we're just going to ease our way back on in here now and get clear back to the back and go down to the bottom and see if we can get us a little sample, and maybe we'll get some gold out of it. That's what we're after, isn't it? Okay, now we're going to just ease back in here. A lot of guys ask me, they say, Buzzard, you got any ideas on why they would quit mining in an area if there's still gold back there? Let's just set our lantern down here, because it gets pretty tight on back in there. We'll get our bucket down here, and boy, this is some good looking material right here. Got a lot of river gravel in it, you know, and we're just gonna, a lot of sand. Hey, that's some real good looking stuff. And I'm gonna take me a sample right here in my bucket. There's a nice river rock right there. But they say, why would they stop if there's still material left there that buries gold? Why would they stop? Who knows? There's a variety of reasons why the old timers quit. Let's go ahead and collect us up some samples here. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time back in here, but there's a lot of reasons why the old timers quit. You know, they might have found something better. You know, that's human nature. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And maybe it's not quite as rich, you know, maybe some of the color played out back here for them. Maybe they weren't getting as good a gold here as they were getting out front or someplace else, and maybe they decided, well, they've gone far enough, or maybe they got rich, you know, maybe they made their pile and quit. They're not a whole lot different than we are today. They might have just decided to retire, and we're going to get us a lot of this good material down in here. I got some good gravel in here, you know, that I'm breaking up, and they might have made their pile. They might have retired from it. You know, maybe the old guy that owned the claim, you know, maybe he died. You know, a lot of miners pass on. Maybe he went back east or something, or come down with the colic, and you know, nobody else could come in and work his mine. And so maybe that's the reason he quit. Or, you know, like a lot of them, you know, they quit during the 40s because gold was made a non-essential industry, and a lot of the old mines were shut down. And so that could have been the reason. But you can see we still got some material here that is unworked. It gets tight back up in there. And from what I see here, looking at this old cave, and I don't know if you ever get out on this claim or this property, by golly, I wouldn't come back in here. Wouldn't recommend that unless you got some people with you and know what you're doing. But if you do come back in here, what I suspicion this is, after seeing it, is that it was a gravel mine. In other words, what that means is a placer mine. The gravel was stuck within the bedrock, and this is bedrock certainly, but it's all pitched up sideways, and the gravel was stuck in here. And what I think happened is when the new river cut its channel out there, it probably washed some of this out, and then the old timers found it, and they just followed it right back in. And of course they didn't get it all. It goes on. And like placer mining, any kind of mining is just a matter of inches. The guys up at the 16-to-1 mine, they're taking metal detectors and going over these old walls, and they're finding those quartz veins. What a guy could do with a metal detector in here is he could go over this floor, and I may bring one back with me, get me one of them Fisher gold bugs or that Garrett Stinger, and bring it back in here and look for those nuggets, because you could go over this and maybe the stuff that's concentrated down on the floor here, you could find it. I got a suspicion that if we get serious about working back in here, we're going to have to go down 3 or 4 feet to really get into the good gold. But let's take this sample out and see if they left any at all. We'll pan this out down there at the creek or the river, and we'll see if there's any gold in it. And if there is, well, then we'll know another place where there's a little gold that's been left by the old timers, because there's a lot of it left. And really some interesting geology when you figure that all the underground mines, they weren't all hard rock mines. A lot of them were placer mines that they were working underground. So let's just ease on out of here. Well, you know, it's just amazing how these guys went in and worked this placer gravel, and we're easing out of here. You know, we're having a lot of fun with this Gold Prospector show. We're not TV people, and it's sure hard on some of these old boys coming in with us doing this prospecting and mining. Well, we got us a sample, and we got out of the mine there okay. I'm going to shut my lantern off, and we'll go down to the creek and we'll pan this stuff out, take a look at it and see what kind of a sample we got in there. Well, maybe we can determine what the old timers is doing, whether they were getting any gold or what was going on with them. These Coleman lanterns are pretty nice. They're not the kind I recommend, though, if you're going back in the mine. I just happen to have that one behind the seat of my pickup truck, and when I found this old cave down here, I decided, well, I'm going to go get it and take a look back in there, and it served its purpose. So let's go down to the creek and pan this stuff out and see what we got. Okay, we're going to find us some quiet water down here by the stream and pan us out a little bit of this stuff out of our bucket. Let me set the gold pan down here, and well, let's just dump a little bit of that in there. I don't need that shovel. We'll pan a little bit of this out, see what we got in it, huh? Set the bucket over here so I can sit down on it. You know, I was telling you that that gold mining, it's a dirty business. No, it's a fun business. I was telling you that it's a game of inches. A couple of friends of mine was up in Alaska last year, and good dredgers, you know. These guys are real good. Let me just talk to you a little bit about what we're doing here. We're washing off the rocks. That's a nice river rock that we found up in that old cave. And a lot of old moss and stuff growing back in there. We're just washing that down. But anyway, these two guys, old Frank and Jim, they were up there dredging. They run out of gold with their dredge, so they shut it off, and they left their dredge there in camp. They took off upstream, you know, and was up there, carried the dredge in all the way upstream, about 2 miles. They were up there dredging. Some other people come into camp, and they didn't know that Jim and Frank had run out of gold with their dredge, so they fired that dredge up and started working with it, because it was a club dredge, and they got 5 ounces the next day. Well, you should have seen Frank and Jim, but that's kind of shows you what mining is. You know, you can go along for 2 or 3 days and not get any gold, and then by golly, you can come up and get a whole bunch. Oh, I see some color in this pan already. God, you know, I tell you, there isn't nothing in the world greater than getting out here in the stream by yourself and God's living room and panning for gold. And you do a little panning, you come up with some little nugget of gold. Look at them nuggets showing up there. Oh man, isn't that nice in that black sand? And I tell you, I can sit here and pan all day with this. Oh, we got some rich ground up there. God, I never get over being excited. Look at the gold in here. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Look at this. Let's take her up here now and take a real good fanning or tailing action on it. Take a look at what we got in the pan. There's some nice little nuggets there. Yeah, we got 2 or 3 nice little pieces here, and well, there's 1, 2, 4, and then there's a whole bunch of fines. So we got some good dirt up there in that mine. I'm going to go back up there and maybe dig me out a couple of 3 buckets and haul them down and run them through a sluice box, and I'll get them full this time. You know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're thinking about getting started in prospecting, a guy asked me one day, he said, George, he said, do you guys always find the gold that you show on the show? And yes, we do. But some things that you don't see is sometimes we work a little bit longer at it than what you see us here on the show. In this particular instance, though, the gold is up there in that cave, and I didn't expect to find that much. I only expected to find a flake or two because I'd taken a pan up there before we started shooting, but I'll tell you, that's really some nice stuff. And anytime you find a little flake of gold like that, you're out all by yourself. There isn't nothing in the world like that. That's the greatest hobby that God ever created for man. There's gold all over. Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, not too much in Kentucky, California. And you know, I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, we owe those old 49ers that came to California and those gold rushes a debt of gratitude, because the entrepreneurial spirit that was born in America, part of that makes up the personality of this great country of ours, was born during that great gold rush out west. And there was many of them. There was about 1,000 gold rushes. They started out in North Carolina and then to North Georgia and all the way to the Bering Sea and Nome, Alaska.
Well, the buzzard proved that there's still gold out there. The old timers didn't get it all, and with price of gold today, there's kind of a gold rush going on right now, and gold prices are up, and the buzzard's going to be touring us through the old history of the gold rush when we come back after the commercial break, so stick around.
Here you've got the assay office. Now, an assay office was usually the first building that was put up in any of the towns. And you know, the gold miners were great for going out west and settling, and most of the towns that we have in the western United States were settled by prospectors, and the assay office was the first place that they would do. That also served as a stage stop and a community hall and a bank. The advertisements, most of the guys got out west, they went around the Horn on sailing ships, and they come into San Francisco, and from there they spread out up and down the 300 miles, the mother lode, and later on to up into Oregon and out to Arizona. And they had every kind of contraption. This was Rufus Porter's flying machine. This was a cartoon depicting that in 1850, where the guy would take a rubber band and stretch it all the way to California and simply cut the rubber band and sling all the Argonauts clear to San Francisco Bay. When they got to San Francisco Bay, a lot of these old sailing ships were abandoned. Their crews would take off and go up into the mother lode as well, because they could make a lot more money digging for gold than they could working as a sailor on the ship. The average guy would get anywhere from a ½ ounce to an ounce. As a matter of fact, it was said about Pine Log, a community much as you see here down in the canyon on one of the rivers throughout the mother lode, that the miners would get as much as 1 ounce to 2 ounces a day per man. And at tin cup diggings in California, they'd work all day to fill up their tin cups. So wages were tremendous in the mother lode of California. They weren't getting rich, but they were certainly making real good wages. Some did get rich, and here in one of the famous paintings from the early days in California, you see the young industrious miner that the people that followed him along had the sporting class, you might say, and they would get him drunk and take his gold off of him, and some horse bets on horse races or something like that. And so many got a lot of gold, and many of them lost it. But most of your miners were good, honest, God-fearing men that left their farm in Illinois or someplace to go out west because there was no work. The United States was basically an agricultural country at that time. It wasn't always the industrialized nation that we see today, but much of the capital to build this industrialized nation was dug out of the ground by men like the ones that you just saw there. Then, of course, when the railroad stretched across the prairies, it brought in hundreds of thousands of new gold miners to rush to all of the different cities, from Helena, Montana to Prescott, Arizona, into Nevada. And it made travel across the prairies easy and cheap. And here you see some of the miners with their burro in Arizona around Tombstone. And many of the guys would travel from one gold rush to another because there were literally thousands of rushes to all these different areas. Wyatt Earp made it to Tombstone as a marshal, and he traveled there because of the gold rush. And later on, he wound up in Nome, Alaska in 1900, and I think even in the movies later on. And they built towns and cities, and the towns that they built were thrown up overnight, but many of them have lasted today. Sacramento, California, Helena, Montana, Prescott, many of these cities were built on gold and were built on the sweat of the miners that you see here. And today, a guy can take a sluice box and go right back into the old diggings, and he can come up with pretty good gold if he knows what he's doing.
Well, thanks for tuning in today, folks. Hope you learned something. Maybe you can get the gold fever and go out there and strike it rich. And the Buzzard's going to be bringing you more of his stuff. We got a lot more good, informative, educational, and entertaining things to come. So tune right back in here for some more gold prospecting. Howdy, folks. Welcome to the show. We got a special one lined up for you today. This is Buzzard's very first show. And I filmed all the shows that he did, and this just me and him out there running a sluice box. A lot of good education, so listen up. There's some good tips in there for finding that yellow metal gold, so enjoy the old Buzzard.
Okay, we've arrived at our destination, and I'm going to give you an idea of what we've done. Now, I came out and prospected this area last week, and I found a bench here that contained old ancient gravel, and that's where we're going to go. And what do I mean by that? Well, when the river was young, the water level was way up here at a higher level like this, and as the river went down, it left these high bench deposits of gravel. Now, the old-timers, they worked some of these bench deposits. A lot of times they would take a big hydraulic, what we call a giant, and they would pump water up, and they'd take this great big hose of water like the fire department uses, and they would wash the bank down. But these small deposits, and there's millions of these small deposits around, they weren't big enough to spend the time and the energy to work with the big giants. So a lot of times, the old-timers back in the 1850s, they worked the area, and they worked right up into the bank, and then because it was so far for them to haul the material to water, and there was much better ground that they could work closer down next to the river, they didn't bother with a lot of this, and a lot of this stuff has a lot of gold in it yet today, and you wouldn't normally be able to tell that there's any of this rich gravel here, except that you have to open up a little bit of it, and you get a feel for it after you've been prospecting for a while, and you just kind of know it's there. It's just the greatest thing in the world to be out here prospecting, and if we're lucky, we're going to dig in here and we'll find some flakes of gold. Now, I did some panning, and you use your gold pan to test with, and I found a few little tiny flakes, but not much, but enough that I think that if we run a volume of this material, like a couple of 5-gallon buckets full or something, that we could get some pretty good gold. First of all, I want to show you the different layers. You can see these round rocks in here, and let me just pop one of them loose here. But you can see these round rocks. See how rounded the edges are on these rocks? Well, when they're rounded like that, that means that it's ancient river gravel. And that, of course, is what you're looking for. And you're always looking in an area where there's been gold found there in the past. And when you find that, then a lot of times we can get some pretty good gold out of it. And it's pretty exciting because you never know when a nice big nugget's going to pop out. Of course, we don't look for the nuggets. The guys that's been doing it for a long time, we look for that fine gold. It's like the old axiom, save your pennies and the dollars will take care of itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up a couple of buckets of material here from this ancient layer, and then we're going to haul it down to the creek and sluice it out. But when you're prospecting, there's a couple of things to remember today, and one of them is to work these high benches, because as the river level went down, and I might tell you something, that today the river might not have any gold in it at all. and yet these high benches, when it was 1 million years ago or 10 million years ago, when it left these gravel deposits way up high in this bench, the river could have been carrying a lot of gold in. And so that's today a lot of us prospectors go out and we get quite a bit of gold out of this. And the kind of gold that we find, they make jewelry out of, and it's worth a lot more money than the gold that you would normally associate with bullion gold or refined gold. Now the gold that we find is not absolutely pure, but it's almost pure. It's a 23 karat probably, if you want to go carat, 24 karat being pure gold, or 999 fine being pure refined gold. We're running about 9.2 in fineness here in California. So you can see that it's very pure gold, but what makes it worth more is that if we find a nugget, it's one of a kind. It's like there's no two snowflakes alike, there's no two people alike, and there's no two nuggets alike. And the gold is as different from California and Alaska and Georgia as it can be. It's all beautiful, but it's all different. And they make jewelry out of it, and a lot of people collect it, and that's why the gold that we find is worth more. So let's take some of this material, and as you can see, it's in here, it's jammed in here real tight, and that's what we like, because the tighter it is, the older it is. And we're going to fill these buckets up now, and we're going to take this down to the creek and pan it out. And also we want to make sure that we keep our eyes open for gemstones too, because sometimes we can find some nice gems in there. I've had guys that found diamonds in Oregon and Idaho, and they've also found rough diamonds in California. Now these are not what we call jeweler's grade diamonds, but they're certainly nice to have. And we also find garnet, a lot of garnets, and garnets are a very beautiful stone as well. So we want to make sure that we keep our eye open for all of that. And we're just going to dig this out and fill up these buckets. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to run some material through a sluice box. What a sluice box does is it concentrates the material down. The stuff that we had in our bucket, we're going to dump some of that into our sluice box, and we're going to let the water carry the larger and the lighter material through the box, and the gold, which is heavier, will be caught hopefully right in the box itself. We're going to help it go through a little bit, throw a few of the larger rocks out, and just let that work through. A good rule of thumb on your sluice box is about 1/4 inch or about 1 inch per foot drop. If you've got a 4-foot sluice box, you want about 4 inches lower at that end than this end. But we'll get to the gold panning in a minute. I know that that's the fun part, the gold panning, but we're going to have some success here and find a big old nugget maybe, and that's what we're looking for. If we don't find a nugget, we'll certainly come home with some nice gold anyway. So we're just going to run the material that we dug out of the bank through the sluice box, and then when we get it all run through, then we'll clean up, and I'll show you how that process goes. Again, we just kind of help it through and throw out some of the larger rocks, and let the water carry the larger and the lighter material off, and let the heavier material, which is the gold, fall down and get trapped behind our traps here. We don't normally see the gold in the sluice box. Where we'll see the gold is in the gold pan, and I'm looking forward to that, because when you're panning out your concentrates, that's always an exciting part of your gold adventure. Okay, what we're going to do now that we've run all of our material through our sluice box, we're going to do what we call clean up. Now we're getting closer to the gold. Our anxiety's getting a little more. We're going to throw off our rock that holds our bucket down. We're going to lift our box up and shut off the flow of water. And then we're going to gently pull our hand sluice out. And we're going to dump the material that's in the hand sluice right into our bucket. And we're going to wash that material into the bucket and take all that material, and then we're going to pan it out. So what we're doing now is we're cleaning up. We're taking our concentrates from our sluice box, we're running them into our bucket, and then we're going to pan out, and hopefully that's where we'll find our gold. Okay, what we got here now is we've got the material that we took, that we run through our sluice box, we got in the bucket, and we're going to wash this into a pan. But before we do that, let me tell you that I'm going to take another pan, and I've put a rock in it here, and I've put it down there, and that's my safety pan. Because any time that I've gone to a little work, you know, or a lot of work, getting my concentrates out of the sluice box, I want to make sure that I trap all the gold. So now what we're going to do is, this is the fun part, we're going to get to check and see if we got any gold. We're going to sink our pan like that, and we're going to wash the material out of our bucket into our gold pan. We want to make sure that we don't lose any of it, because this is our concentrates, this is our cleanup. And so let's just dump that in there and wash all the material out of the bucket. I think we got most of it out of there. And again, now, we don't have a whole lot of material here, but this is the stuff that we've concentrated out. And we don't have any large rocks or anything. And now we're going to pan this material out. And this is what we call our concentrates, and here's where we're going to find our gold, if any. And now I'm just going to give you some instructions on gold panning. You hold your pan and you do what we call a good semi-liquid condition of the material in your pan. You get it slurried up there, and you allow the material to stratify, because the gold is very heavy. It has a specific gravity of 19, and so it will drop to the bottom and allow the other material to come up. But you have to loosen that material up so that the gold can go to the bottom. And then, as you see, I'm allowing some of that material to go right off, and I'm using the new ribbed pans with the Chinese ribs in them. And we just pan that material right down. And it's getting pretty exciting now, because if we got any gold out of our place up there, why, it'll start to show up. So you just work that material down, allowing that material to slip off. We don't have to be too careful, because we've got our safety pan down there, and we know that if we get into a lot of gold, we can pan that the second time. So let's just pan this down. And now we start to see our black sand. And what black sand is it's that heavy black sand material. It's made out of magnetite and hematite that's found in the same locations that your gold is. You don't always find gold in black sand, but where you find gold, you almost always find black sand. And a lot of people will stop when they got too much material in their pan, but we're going to pan this right on down so that we can take a look and find out if we got any gold. And I can start to see some gold showing up there yet, and we haven't yet really seen any gold. But now we're going to take a look, and this is where it really gets exciting in gold mining, is that we're going to do what we call our tailing or our fanning action. We're going to fan that material around there, and if there's any gold in our pan, oh my gosh, look at this one here. Look at this nice nugget right here. Look at that one that showed up. Boy, we've got a nice spot up there, and this is what it's all about. They say that life doesn't get any better than this. Boy, we're getting close to it. You can see the nice little pieces of gold in the pan and the nice nugget. My wife is going to be real happy when I bring her that pair for the other side of her earrings. So this is what it's all about. We got some gold. We went out and had a good time. And I'm going to tell you, give you a little review of what we did. But how about that? We're in an area, it wasn't all gotten. You've seen it with your own eyes. We got some good gold here. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our trip. We are in the mother lode, the southern mother lode, the foothills of the Sierras. We've gone into an area where we know that there's gold that's been found in the past. The 1850 gold rush to California came through this area. There was millions of dollars in gold taken out. But as you and I both know now, they didn't get it all. But we didn't do like the tourists and go right down to the stream and work the gravel that's been worked a million times before, or hundreds of times before. We went into the bench and we found us some virgin gravel, and we brought that down to the stream in a 5-gallon bucket. We sluiced it out, and we panned our concentrates, and we come up with, one nugget here that's worth maybe $150. It's priceless to me, because nobody's ever seen that nugget before. It's been hidden there for millions of years since the earth was formed. And we have a lot of smaller gold here. we certainly made our gas money this weekend, and as we all know, gasoline has sure gone up in value. It's a great outdoor hobby, recreational mining. There is a lot of places to go. There's a lot of public land, and most of the public land is open, and much of it has gold. As you can tell, the beautiful area that we're in is conducive to recreational mining. It's not suited for the large commercial mining that once went through our country, but it's a wonderful legacy that is left for the individual that goes to the high Sierras or into the foothills and the Mother Lode and the millions of areas throughout the United States that carry what we call in term as placer gold. In our next show, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of prospecting buddies of mine, and we're going to go into an old mining area that we believe that there's a bonanza of gold, and we're going to go and see if we can't find the 1 pound lumps that this area is so famous for. So until then, we're glad that you could join us, and I hope that you and I'll get a chance to go prospecting again together sometime.
Yeah, Buzzard was my father, and he passed away back in 1993. And for a long time there, it was hard for me to watch his old shows because I missed him so much. But nowadays, you know, time goes by, and I guess things scar over, and now I really enjoy watching his shows. It's fun to see the old Buzzard again on TV, and we're glad we've gotten a lot of good response of people enjoying his show, so we're glad to be bringing it to you here. Stick around after the commercial break. Buzzard's going on a Klondike gold rush. I'm going to tell you about that. That's real interesting, so we'll see you after the break, folks.
So let's go up now and take a look at the Klondike. And what you're looking at here is some of the brochures that they used to sell this great gold rush to the Klondike. Here you see the Yukon Valley, and this was publicized in a lot of the newspapers and the magazines all over the United States. And as you can see in here, there's the old prospector heading out for the Klondike, and his little granddaughter there wishing him, bidding him goodbye as he heads out into the Yukon Valley. Now, they took a trip. They went north out of Seattle. There was 2 or 3 ways to get there. They could go up along with ship up to Skagway or Drea, and from there they could go over White's Pass and on into the Klondike. Or if they had the fare, they could go all the way around to St. Michael, around the peninsula of Alaska, and they could go up the Yukon River, all the way from the mouth at St. Michael. They could go all the way up the Yukon River. Right here, this is Henderson. This is the first guy. He paid Snookum Jim, who discovered gold in the Klondike. And Henderson started all. And here's the 3 lucky guys that found all the gold, or at least found the gold, the discovery that started the great Klondike gold rush. And I have a picture of Snookum Jim. They considered him lazy. This was George Carmack, and Tangus Charlie. Now, these 3 guys were the 3 that found the original discovery. That was publicized in the Seattle Post-Intelliger. That paper is still in business, been bought by the Seattle Times today. And this was the front page news of the gold when some of these guys came back from the Klondike. And this is what it started. It started a great gold rush. All the guys went down to the dock in Seattle to try to buy passage on any ship they could to head for the great gold fields in the Klondike. Seattle became one of the big storage places for gold. They supplied everything out of there. There was all sorts of handbills, and this is one of the fare bills. You could buy passage all the way around to the Klondike for $300. Or for $56, you could get as far as Skagway. And of course, $300 was a fortune in those days. And so most of the guys headed out and went up through the inland passage to Skagway or Drea and hiked over the Chillicoot or White Pass and then down into the Dawson City. Like I said, if you had the $300, you could go all the way around by boat, by ship, and come up the Yukon River. By sternwheeler. You transferred from the ocean-going vessel and came up there. This is some of the brochures that was published on the thing. And then once you got to Skagway or Drea, you had 2 choices. You could either go up the White Pass, as shown here on the right, or the Chillicoot Pass. Now, going up the White Pass out of Skagway, you run into some awful crooks there in Skagway. Some of the more notorious thieves and stuff were in there, and they would get the guys into the bars and take their money off of them. This was Skagway prior to the building of just when the prospectors started in. It was kind of a tent city when the prospectors just started getting there in 1896 and 97. Of course, there was a few that had been there before. And this is what Skagway looked a year later in 1898 and 99. It became quite a city, and it is today. It was a bustling community. And it was a terminus for the supply of all different kinds of material. All the supplies that the prospectors took to the Yukon had to come through Skagway, had to be unloaded off the ships, and then packed physically by animal or whatever up the passes. And this is the early building of Skagway. You can see the buildings being built there, and the town and the mud and the so forth, and the hotel, and there was all sorts of things you could get going over the pass there in 1897 or going into Skagway. This is going up the White's Pass. This is the trail up White's Pass, and this was really a burden for all of the this is what they call them, the beast of burden, because the prospectors, the gold rushers, the gold seekers had to haul all of their gear up and over into Canada and be checked through the Canadian. They used dogs. They say there was not a dog left in the city of Seattle, and any dog that was large enough to pack was kidnapped. They used bulls and steers to pack and pull their gear up. A prospector could use a steer and then to pull his gear, and then when he got to the gold fields, he had plenty of beef to eat, because they would then slaughter the steer and dine on the beef. That's where they had a lot of beef jerky, and this was the mass of humanity heading over White's Pass.
Well, that's it for today. I got my scorpion right here. A guy makes these up out of wire, and they're pretty nifty. Got it out here. Big old gnarly scorpion. You come out here in the dark, though, that kind of give you a shock. But we're out of time today, and we're glad that you tuned in. We'll be back here again for some more of the old buzzard. Well, welcome to the show, and this is your last chance. Last chance is in Last Chance Canyon, and that's where we're going on today's show with the old buzzard himself and a bunch of his cronies. Bob Clem, Gene Brooks, Perry Massey, Jake Hardwick, and they all headed out, and I tell you, this was quite an adventure going on this one. And of course, I filmed all the buzzard shows, so I'm behind the camera when you watch this, and it's a real interesting one, and they found a bit of gold out there.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, my name is George Massey, and this week a group of friends of mine, we're going to take the GPAA mining guide. That's the guide that the club puts out, and we're going to go out to one of the claims. And let me show you the area that we're going into. This is the guide, and members that use this can, any member that belongs to the club, they can use this guide and go out and keep all the gold they find. And so this is a real good tip for you. We've got all these different areas that we have areas in that members can go to free of charge, and the one that we're going to is Area 1, which is in Southern California. And let me just show you a little closer detail of that, of Area 1. I'll just flip over here and show you the one that we're going to. Okay, now this is a closer up of the Southern California area, and the one we're going to is Area 5 out near Ridgecrest and Last Chance Canyon in the Mojave Desert. And so we're going to go out there and see if we can find some gold. And now, in using the guide, and what the fellows do is we picked out this, we got together and we decided on which one we were going to go out and take a look at, see if we could find some gold. A lot of the members have been coming in with some real good reports on that claim. And so now you flip over to number 5, which this corresponds with the page number. And here's the claim. It's E. Able 9. It's on public land, but there's an individual that owns that claim out there and has listed it with the association, so any member can go out there and use it and keep all the gold they find. The directions is from Garlock Road, 4-wheel drive up Last Chance Canyon. But let me tell you, we filed a report, because you can fill out a report in here, and the best way to come is back up off the highway from Ridgecrest and come down this way and come through the old Cudahy campsite and then down onto the claim in Last Chance Canyon. We're going to take you out there and show you the nuggets that we got. Let me just say a couple of things to you while I'm talking about this particular claim in the claims guide, because I know a lot of you will be going out to visit that. If you come out, you should have a four-wheel drive. We did make it with a two-wheel drive van. We came down and then we went back up and we went out Mesquite Canyon and we prospected down in this area. There's no water out there at the present time. It's a dry wash. It's an excellent place for dry washing or high banking, or if you go in the winter time when there's some water in the canyon, then of course it'd be good for dredging, because there's some really nice bedrock out there that really got me and some of the fellows excited. Do not go on down this way, because down this way the road deteriorates and gets pretty bad. Unless you've got a good four-wheel drive, don't mind scratching it up a little bit. You might make it on down Last Chance Canyon, but the road is really bad down in the lower end of the claim. But coming in here, you can come in basically with a two-wheel drive as long as the weather's pretty good, and you can get out this way, and you need a real good Forest Service or land status map to go along with this. This is a detailed USGS map. So now let's take and go on out on the claim. Me and some fellows. We had Gene Brooks with us. Gene's been mining for about 50 years, and Bob Clem and Jake Hardwick and Perry Massey, and we all went out and did some prospecting out there with our metal detectors and took a look at that country. So let's go along and take a look at the E-Able 9 claim out in Last Chance Canyon. Well, here we are out here in Last Chance Gulch, and I got some friends of mine out here with me. Now, this Last Chance Canyon, this is where the guys come when they were kind of down on their luck, and they'd come out and they'd find some nuggets, because there's really no fine gold out here in Last Chance Gulch. It's all fairly large gold, and they could spin them nuggets. And I got some guys out here with me, and we're going to do some metal detecting and browsing around in the old canyon, and they're going to take their metal detectors and look for nuggets and see what we can do. I got Mr. Gene Brooks here with me. He's been mining for about 50 years or so. And on this side over here, you've seen him before. That's Bob Clem, and I got Perry here and Jake. And Gene, just how long have you been mining?
Since about 1930.
About 1930. That was a few years before I was born, and I've been at it about 30 years, so that's quite a while. Gene's got a metal detector, and Bob's got one, and Perry has got the gold pan, and then Jake's got a metal detector. And these guys are going to fan out, and they're going to see if they can find some nuggets, and then we're going to come back and talk to them, and they're going to give us some pointers on how to use these metal detectors. But Perry and I, we're going to crawl up the hill here and take a look at all these holes that these old timers dug out here in Last Chance Canyon. If you look right up here, you'll see all their tailing piles up there, and they went along and they were working a tertiary layer that was laid in way up on the hill there. And this is some of that bench gravel that I've been telling you about on the Prospector Show, and we're going to go up there and poke around their tailings a little bit while the guys spread out, because as that material was washed out and this gully was cut down through here in Last Chance Gulch, as that was cut down through here, and the water eroded down, well, it brought a lot of gold down as it come and laid it down here in the floor of this canyon, and that's what the guys are going to be looking for with their metal detectors. And then Perry and I are going to go up there and we're going to take the gold pan, take some samples, and see if we can find some color, and then come back down here. Bob, you guys all going to share that gold with us that you found with these metal detectors? Yeah, well, we sure will share ours, won't we, Perry?
Yeah,
okay.
Water hole over here. We can do a little pan.
All right, well, you guys go ahead and fan out, and good luck, and see if you can find a nugget, and I'm going to come back and visit with you, and maybe you got some pointers for the guys at home, huh?
Okay, George.
All right, and Perry, let you and I take off and go up the hill.
Okay, sounds good.
Whew. Yeah, boy, I'm going to take a... Hey, look at this, Perry. Whew, going to take a break, but look at this boulder, buddy.
Yeah,
that's a jasper, a whole
That's that
boulder
ocean
of
bottom
jasper.
salacious jasper material there.
Yeah, you know, a guy could slab that. You talk about something for the rock hounds. There it is, a whole boulder jasper. You know, I know a guy that was sitting on a boulder like this, a quartz boulder one time, Perry. And he just out on the side of the hill like we are here, and it was just a remnant boulder. And he took a hammer and he knocked a piece of it off. You know, a lot of times we have those picks with us, and it stuck. It wouldn't come apart.
Broke, but it wouldn't fall.
And he took the whole boulder, took over 200 ounces of gold out of a boulder like this. Well, it was a white quartz, but is there ever any gold in jasper?
Not that I know of. This comes out of the bottom of an ocean.
But this
or a lake.
is real nice polishing material. You can slab that and polish it. And guy
Real
probably
hard.
make himself $1 million over quartzite, a rock show over there if he slabbed that off and did it. So there you are, right there. You can come out and find some of these old jasper boulders and get you a rock tumbler and do some good. Okay, let's head on up the hill. Had my break.
Get my gold pan.
Okay, don't forget the gold pan there. Boy, that's quite a hike up here, Perry, but this looks like the hole that we're looking for here. This is where the guys went in and they dug in, and this layer runs all the way across here. Perry, this old sedimentary layer of gravel, all cemented together. We're going to go down in that hole and take a look and poke around, and man, all different kinds of rocks.
Yeah, it looks like it's cemented gravel, so an ancient river channel.
And they must have worked up here with dry washers, because there's no water up here. They must have brought that material out, worked it up here by the dry wash. Let's go in and see if we can ascertain what they did in there.
Okay.
Got to watch out for snakes. Yeah, we got to look out for snakes down in here, Perry, and scorpions and all kinds of things that live down these holes. You and I, we've been in a lot of them. Boy, look at all this cemented gravel.
Yeah. So
Tell me something about this. I know you're a mining engineer. Tell me some of the information about these old tertiary layers that laid in
these things run
here.
all over this area, and the old timers worked them. And
Let me get on down in here. We got a nice, oh man, we got a nice hole going down here. Listen, I'll tell you what I think. Now, what I think is that there's a layer that runs through here, and the guys worked right down to that layer, and on the bottom of that layer,
that's what they're working.
on the bottom of the layer was the best, and so that's why they left all this material up here, but it's got to have gold in it too. And as you can see here, there's one hell of a bunch of
gravel.
heck of a bunch of gravel that they didn't work.
Well, we got to get
I
us a
tell you
sample
what,
there.
why don't you get down in the hole there and see if you can get a sample. I got a pocket knife. I didn't bring any tools with me.
I got one.
That's always the way it is with us prospectors. You know, we go out there and sometimes we bring the stuff and sometimes we don't. I don't know if you can see these rocks here, but boy, there's some really nice, nice looking gravel in here, Perry.
Yeah, this looks
And,
good.
and like I said again, these old timers, they take their pick and they work this gravel out here, and they take that up and they run it through a dry washer. And there must be 500 holes along here, and there's nobody using any of them. And so they're open for anybody who wants to come
I got a
out
pretty
and
good
work.
sized boulder here that I'm getting material out from behind it here.
Yeah, and we'll take a sample of that, and then we'll go down and we'll check on the boys down below and see if they're finding anything with a metal detector. This looks like a good place in here to check with the metal detector. Boy, they went way on back in here too. Now this has got a good solid roof to it. Doesn't look like it's prone to caving in or anything. You want to make sure that if you do anything like this, you want to make sure that you know what you're doing. You're careful. I don't recommend that just anybody goes out and goes into these places unless they know what they're doing. But they can sure be a lot of fun, and what an adventure we can have with this kind of stuff. So if you got your sample, there, Perry, let's take that down. There's a puddle of water down there, and we'll wash it out. And if you got anything in it, maybe we'll come back and set our dry washer up, do some dry washing, or bring the guys back up with their metal detectors.
All right,
so
I got a good sample.
If you want to come on, I'll take that pan up here. You can hand it to me, and we'll take it on out.
Okay.
Okay, why don't you just hand that right up to me?
That's some interesting stuff down in
Boy,
there.
I'll tell you, that's really something. I want to show you something, Perry, that I got out of the pan there. I got a piece of jasper here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it in here. There's another piece right there. You're going to have fun panning that out. And what I got here is I got some silica. Riverbed silica.
Well, basically what that is that's a bottom of a lake that takes millions of years for it to deposit in there like that.
It's real hard, and I know this is the stuff that the Indians make their arrowheads out of.
Yeah, this stuff really shines up real pretty when you put it in a rock tone.
Yeah, so if you slabbed it and shined it, it'd really be pretty. A lot of that out here. Tell me about this fault that we're looking at over here.
Well, basically what you had was one time it was a flat layer through there, and then some geologic event caused that fault to shoot in there, and you could see the real distinct fault line that runs through there, how that one layer is kinked up there, and a lot of times that's a good place to look for gold nuggets.
These faults are kind of the same kind of faults that you find in the San Andreas Fault, these major faults in California where they have all the earthquakes, and a lot of time you find gold right in those faults. And in those fault areas, like this area of this old lake bed that's laying in here. Well, let's take a look down now and see how the fellas are doing with their metal detectors, see if we're rich. See if they found any 1 pound lumps down there, so to speak, you know, the mother lode, you know.
Well, they're
the
busy down there.
Laddie, boy, I'll tell you, they're busy down there. So let's climb back down the hill. That's quite a hike down there, and let's take a look and see. You want me to help you with that pan? Or
Yeah, I can't wait to get
okay, we'll go down, there's a mud puddle down there, and we'll pan that out. So let's head back down the hill. Well, Perry, let's take a look and see how Gene and these guys. How you doing, Gene?
Well, I got some good signals in here, but I don't. Looks like I found one right here.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look. You got anything?
Well, let me check this one out right here. There it is.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Jesus.
Right there, huh, Gene?
Wow.
Right here, laying right
Did you
on
find
top.
any besides this one while we were up there?
I got a little signal, but I have got to go back and dig them, check them yet. I'm not sure.
Boy, that's right close to the surface. I understand Alice got one over here too. Gene's wife found one that's about 3 or 4 times that big, wasn't it,
About a
Gene?
1 ounce nugget.
About a
Get me a
1
metal
ounce nugget.
detector.
She found that out one day while you and I were digging. She was just out with the metal detector. Found a nice 1 ounce nugget. Well, let's go over here. How you doing down there, Bob? I think Bob's found something down there. Let's go down and see what he's found. I'll give you back your nugget there,
Okay.
Gene. Let's go down and see what Bob's got down here. You're going to share that with us, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, what you got here, Bob? I think Bob's got a signal. Hold everything now. I want you to take a look at this, Bob. You got a good signal. You think you might have a nugget in here somewhere?
Getting a good signal.
So
right
what Bob's done is he's got a signal in here, and he's looking for a nugget. And let's just open it up and see if we can find one in here, Bob. Where do you want to run your signal through here again? So it's right in this area here.
Right there.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, look at that.
Look at that nugget.
Wow.
Right there, Bob. Well, boy, congratulations, buddy. You've been down here looking quite a
Listen to
way.
that sound.
Yeah, nothing like that, huh? Look at that nugget. Hey, take
Man.
a look at that.
That's awesome.
So when you find something like that, you can just keep going over it. Let's put her back down here, Bob, and show us what that sounds like again. We don't want to lose it. But see,
Has a very sharp, distinct sound.
very sharp, distinct sound. That's a nice nugget. Will you take that away, Perry? Maybe,
Well,
God, it don't get any better than that, does it, buddy?
Not very close to half an
How
ounce on that
about
puppy,
that,
man.
huh? There ain't no gold left. The old timers got it all, huh? Look at this one, Gene.
Holy cow, look at that. That's bigger than mine.
Yeah,
heard
Gene
you
found a
some
nice
stuff
one.
up
Show
there?
him yours, Gene.
I heard him doing a little
How you
hooping
doing,
and hollering
Jake?
before.
Jake find anything? No,
Yeah.
Jake
Oh,
ain't found
man.
another metal down there.
Yours bigger than mine.
Boy, look at that. Isn't that pretty gold rough? It hadn't traveled too far either.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's some real nice
I've never
stuff.
failed to find a gold nugget in this canyon yet, every time I've been here.
Never failed to find a gold nugget. Well, boy, I'll tell you, there's a couple of nice ones. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to go out with your metal detector and think you're going to find that the first time you go out in 15 minutes, Bob, how long you been down here looking?
3 days now with
3
Gene.
days with Gene. And Gene, how long you been mining?
Oh, about 30 years.
30 years, longer than that. About 50 years, I think.
Yeah, okay.
We don't want to tell your age on you, but what I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, is there's a lot of gold left out there, and you can find some real nice nuggets. But be patient. When you go out with your metal detector, if you get a White's or Garrett or Compass or something like that, a good metal detector, it's going to take you some time to learn how to use it. These guys are professionals. They've been using these metal detectors for a long time. But if you stay with it, you will find some gold, and especially here in Last Chance Gulch, unless you're like Jake. Jake's a real good dude. You know, Jake, I know you got skunk, but let me tell you that Jake is one heck of a guy with a metal detector. He's probably the best of all of us, and yet he got skunked today, so it can happen.
It happens.
So don't be discouraged if you get skunked, but that's a nice nugget. You see
Look at that, Jake.
See that nugget?
Oh man, are you kidding me? Bam!
Isn't that great?
That's a beauty, man.
Well,
Jeez,
I'll tell you what we're going to do now, we're going to take this stuff. We're going to take this stuff. Perry and I went in a hole up there on the top, and we came up with some leverite. Looks like you're on the top. Anyway, we're going to take this over. We got a mud hole over here, and Perry's going to pan that out. And then if it works out pretty good, I'm going to take a couple of buckets of it back to the old Buzzard Roost mine. So maybe Perry and I and Jake can get us a nugget like that. So let's go over and pan that out. Okay, we got this mud hole here, Perry. I'll let you do the panning in there. Perry's a real good panner, and it takes one if you're just going to pan in any old puddle you can find. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there, Perry?
Well, basically, what you want to do is you want to create a fluid bed in the pan. And basically what that does is that allows all the heavy material to drop down to the bottom of your pan, and you can get all the heavy stuff at the bottom and keep it going out. And you alternate between two different steps of right this here, which is taking the lighter material off the top, and then this brings it back and settles the heavy stuff at the bottom. And everybody develops their own techniques. It takes a little while to get used to it. And once you get your own technique, you can do pretty good with it. And these pans with the traps in them work pretty well for taking these field samples. You can take those samples down pretty fast.
Yeah, because you don't have to worry about losing the gold. Boy, that was some nice gold that Gene and
Man,
Bob
they were
found
finding
over there.
real
Jake,
good
he
stuff.
was kind of bummed out. He didn't find very much. Let's take now. When you get to this stage, you do what we call a tailing or fanning action, and we'll take a look and see if we. Hey, I think I saw a flash in the pan.
Hey, there's some gold in there. Look at that
Look
stuff.
at those nice nuggets.
Man,
you know.
look at those guys.
Hey, Jake, you guys come on over here. I think we got some more. These are not as big as the ones they found, but boy, they're pretty nice. Look at this. I'll tell you, Gene, you were telling me.
Man, that's a good spot up there.
You were telling me that in this country they only find large gold and they don't find any small gold, and that is really strange.
Go get some buckets,
in
man.
Most all the areas that I've ever been in, this is the only area that I've ever been in where there's no little fine gold. There's some black sand, but I don't see any gold in it. But look at these nice big nuggets. And you were telling me that this is a real strange area
This
out
is
here.
a strange area. This is where the old timers come to make their grocery bill for the mother lode. They come back here when this flat broke and leave here with a sack of flour and beans.
Well, beans is always good. And I'll tell you what, if you got some of these worry rocks, you don't have to worry about beans, because there's always somebody to trade you a plate of beans for one of these rocks. So we don't have to worry about going hungry, do we?
Not
And
yet.
then especially with that nice one that you found. Well, we're going to go up and get some more buckets of this. Jake, why don't you leave that metal detector down there?
I think I will,
We're
George.
not doing any good with it anyway. Let's go up there and get some more buckets of this material and take it back to the old Buzzard Roost mine. Maybe we can find some more of these. Boy,
Yeah, remember we're going to share
Yeah,
this
man,
now.
those are great.
Well, yeah, well,
Jake's
you're
gotta
going to
find
share
some to get
yours
in
with
on the
us,
cut,
huh?
This one here is mine. I'll take that one.
Okay, well, we're going to head on back.
Go
I'll
get
us
the
some
fat
more
one.
buckets.
Well, that was a doozy. Now, going back in those old coyote holes, those miners, that's a dangerous thing. There was a guy who went back there with an impact hammer and brought down a bunch of that stuff on him, and you got to be careful going back in those old holes like the old buzzard did, getting that material out of there. And I tell you, that was quite an adventure with that old white van. We had to let the air out of the tires to get around in the sand, and we almost tipped that thing over a couple of times. It was a good thing we had a bunch of guys to push that thing around when it got stuck in the sand. Quite an adventure. And we're going to be bringing you more adventures here, the old buzzard. So you stay tuned, and we'll see you back here again for another show.
Oh, man, are you kidding me?
Well, thanks for tuning in. We dug through the vault and dusted off a real gem for you today. The buzzard's going to be going up to the far reaches of the planet, up in the Arctic, metal detecting on some bucket line dredge tailings. Some pretty interesting stuff. You don't want to miss this one, folks, so check it out. The old buzzard with his tips and his tricks.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, my name is George Massey. You know, ladies and gentlemen, for years, they've been doing a lot of gold mining in the United States. We had many gold rushes. The first one started back in Virginia, I believe it was, and into North Georgia, and the first gold mint was in Dahlonega, Georgia, you know, and there's gold all through the eastern belt, and I guess just about every state in the Union. You know, there's a big gold rush even in Oklahoma. But when we come out west later on, after the gold rushes was over, because most of them, the guys back in those days, they used hand equipment, you know, the pick and the number 2 shovel and the sluice box and the dry washer, much the same as we do the gold mining today. But let me tell you that along about 1900, they developed what was called a gold dredge. Now, these weren't the gold dredges that you're used to seeing on the Gold Prospector show. These were great big monstrous dredges with big buckets on them, and they would go in and they would dig up the gravel and dump it over a sluice and a flume and run it back, or a big trommel, and they left a lot of tailing piles. Well, these old dredges weren't too good at getting the gold, and a lot of guys that's a little bit smart and done some research, well, they go back and they take a look at these old tailing piles and they find some pretty good gold. And what the modern day prospector's using, he's using one of these metal detectors, and they work pretty good, by golly. And we're going to go out with Jake, and Jake and I, we're going to take you out there and we're going to see if we can't find some of this gold. And I'll show you what these old bucket line gold dredges look like, because they're pretty unique. You know, they left thousands of acres of tailing piles out there in a lot of communities. They run these things back east. They run some of them out in the desert. They set these old dredges in their own pond, and they just slurry the water and work in their own pond. So environmentally, they were pretty good, because they didn't have to get out in the stream. I mean, a lot of them did, but they didn't have to, so they were around a lot longer than hydraulic mining was. As a matter of fact, there's still some of these bucket line dredges in operation today up in Alaska. And I think there's one in California that's in operation, and of course Canada and other places. But let's take a look. If you can recognize these old tailing piles, you can get some gold. You got one of these metal detectors at home, get it out of the closet. I got something for you to look for besides pennies. Okay, before we get started with the metal detector looking for nuggets, I want to explain to you why we've come out to a gold dredge today. For those of you that don't know what a gold dredge is, I'm going to show you a little bit about the one that we've got here, and we're going to talk about some of the others. But they had hundreds of these old gold dredges in the United States, and they run them day and night. As a matter of fact, these things had run 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and with very little downtime. And they're an excellent place to go out nugget shooting. Now, there are a lot of places that you can use your metal detector to find nuggets. You can go to the beaches, you can go out and search the streams and stuff like that. But a lot of people overlook these tailing piles. And there's thousands and thousands of acres of these tailing piles. And let's just talk about this old dredge a little bit and show you what one of them looks like. Most of the time, these old dredges are gone. There's very seldom that you'll find too many of them sitting around. They're either sunk or they've been hauled off and scrapped for the iron and stuff like that that's in them. This over here is, of course, the digging arm. This is the digging ladder, and here are some of the old buckets. And this had an endless chain of buckets that run around, and it dug the material up from the gravel and material up from the bench of the stream, and it dumped it up above into a trommel or into a sluice arrangement. Now, the earlier dredges had sluices in them, and the later ones, like this one here, they had trommels in them. And both of them had problems that was good for you and I, is because the trommel dredges, they have holes in them about the size of your finger, your thumb, or one of your fingers, about a 3/4 hole in this trommel, and any nugget that was too large to go through that hole would go right back into the tailing pile. The sluice dredges, they had a different kind of problem that I'll explain to you. Once the material was dumped up inside here, it went down through the trommel, and then everything that was 3/4 of an inch or smaller would be dumped into a series of sluice boxes and jigging devices that would take the gold and the fine gold out, because there's most miners will tell you that's worth their salt that there's 100 times or maybe even 1,000 times more fine gold than there is large gold. And so really, when they were sitting there working day in, day out, they were looking for the flour gold, the coarse gold, but the nuggets were so rare that they really weren't interested in them. But there were a lot of nuggets, so they weren't worried about losing a few if they could catch most of the gold. Now, these old dredges were pretty efficient because they sat in their own pond and they just moved ahead. And environmentally speaking, they were pretty nice environmentally because they worked mainly in the bench of the stream, or the stream could be diverted around the dredge. The problem that we had with them environmentally is that they threw up these large piles of tailings, and that took away some of the good farmland. Well, now they're taking bulldozers and going back in and leveling these tailing piles, and any of these things that are in operation today, then they have what they call a reclamation. So when they get done mining, they got to take these big D9s and D11s and level those tailing piles and put the topsoil back over, and you can't tell where the old timers have worked. But there is a lot of these tailing piles that's still exposed that you can get on with your metal detector, and you can find some gold. Let's just take a little bit look down here a little bit farther. If you look at this thing sticking out here on the end, that was the stacker. That's where the material went that was rejected out of the trommel. It was stacked up into massive tailing piles. And let me tell you that we're talking about sluice dredges. Here's a riffle, one of the old riffles out of this dredge, but some of them, they had big steel sluice boxes instead of trommels, and all the material go down through those sluice boxes. An old timer one time, he was about 84 years old when he told me this story about 20 years ago. He said, "George," he said, "I'm too old to go back there, but he said, I want you fellas to go back and maybe see if you can find that." He said, "I was working on this gold dredge as a tender," and he said they had a big cage around the sluice box because they wouldn't allow any of the employees on the dredge to get close to the gold. But he said when the water would clear up, we could look through and we could actually see the gold in the sluice box, especially just before cleanup. Now, they would stop these dredges and clean them up about once every 2 weeks or once every month, depending upon how much gold they were in, and sometimes only once every 2 or 3 months. But he said that they had a regular season, a regular period on his dredge that they would stop and clean up. And it was just before cleanup one time that him and his friends were looking in, and they'd been through some extremely rich material, and they could see all the gold laying in the riffles and the upper part of the sluice box every time the water get clear. But he said the day before they cleaned up, they run into some clay, and these clay would ball up in the sluice box, and he said the next time they went back and looked, there was no yellow in the sluice. So he figured that there was over $1 million worth of gold in the sluice box before they cleaned up, that was robbed by the clay and taken back. Now, if you read some of your treasure magazines and stuff like that, and of course the Gold Prospector magazine, you'll know they refer in there to sluice robbers, and when they're talking about sluice robbers, they're talking about these old clay balls, because this clay would ball up, it would come over, and it's sticky and it's clay, and it would pick the gold up in the sluice box and attach itself to it, and then the flow of the water would dump this stuff back into the tailing piles. And sometimes you'll find that. And this old timer told me this story, and I went up and I've looked at this tailing pile several times, but I haven't found the gold, and I can tell you it's over there by Sumter, Oregon, and I haven't stopped looking. This dredge doesn't happen to be the one that's over there in that area, and it's not the one that the tourists go to, but one of these days when we're sitting having coffee, old Buzzard, I'll tell you where that one is specifically. And I'm going to have Jake come out after a while, and Jake and I are going to talk about some areas where there's some tailing piles on some of the GPAA claims that you can go to. But before we get into that, I want to take this baby and I want to go up there and put it to work, because these old dredges were good, they were efficient equipment, but they didn't trap all the gold, and the gold that they left more times than not was the large nuggets, and that's the easiest one to pick up with your metal detector. Now, the detector that I'm going to use today is happened to be one that's developed specifically for finding nuggets, but any detector that you have is good for these tailing piles. It may not be good for working in a stream where that you've got very tiny nuggets that you're looking for, but if you're going out in some of the areas, now they run these bucket line dredges in Georgia and Tennessee, they run them all through the state of California and Idaho and Montana and Washington and Oregon, and they even done some dry desert dredging where they would dig out and flood the thing with a pond and put a dredge in there and work it in its own water in Arizona. So anytime that you find these old tailing piles, it's an excellent time to take your metal detector out, and you don't have to run down and buy a new detector, because these nuggets that we're talking about are big enough that you can detect them. If you're looking for very small nuggets, then of course you're going to want to get a specialized detector, and most of the major manufacturers manufacture these very specialized detectors to find these small nuggets with. But any kind of detector will work on the kind of gold that we're looking for out here this week. Let's take this baby and let's go up on this tailing pile over here and see what we can find. Well, now on these old tailing piles, there's a couple of things you're looking for. You know, sometimes you'll find there's hundreds of acres of these tailing piles, but you can eliminate some of the area, and some of the things you're looking for, you got to understand how it worked. The dredges dug sometimes 50, 60 feet deep down in the bowels of the earth. They would dig up the lower stratas of gravel, and they would dump that on top, because that's the last thing they would dig, and that would get dumped on top of the tailing pile. Then as the rain over the years, the rain and the water has washed this down, the gold is the heaviest, so the gold will be left closer to the surface, along with some of the larger rocks that's exposed. And also, while they were digging down on the bottom, there was a lot of remnant quartz, and there's remnant quartz in all these gold-bearing streams. Now, the old-timers, a lot of times, they'd follow it up to its source, and then they'd find the vein of quartz, but you can find a lot of remnant quartz that's got gold in it too. And of course, this would just come through like any other rock through their sluice box or their trommel. This happens to be a trommel dredge here, so what we're looking for is we're looking for the nuggets that were too large to go through their trommel screen that got kicked out into the tailing pile. And I know guys that have found solid gold nuggets as big as this quartz rock here. I don't expect to find one out here today, but maybe we'll find something. So let's turn our metal detector on. Let me get this thing tuned up here, and then we'll just kind of sweep the area. And what I usually like to do is I usually like to mark the area so that I don't go back and sweep the same area twice, you know. And we just kind of sweep it like that. I got a little indication there. Oh, I got an indication here. I can see what that is. That's a piece of barbed wire. That's a piece of old barbed wire. A lot of people save that old barbed wire, but I don't. I got quite a bit of it, so we'll just kind of keep sweeping along here, and maybe we can find something. There's a piece of quartz that's got some nice color on it. I didn't get an indication on it, so it doesn't It doesn't appear to have any gold in it. You notice that I wear a Timex watch or one of those cheap watches that doesn't have any metal in it, so that I can do that. It's got a little bit of an indication, so that would indicate that there's maybe some metal in it. And boy, it sure looks nice. So I think I'll save that rock, and we'll just keep looking. I've got a yard plumb full of those rocks. There's so many interesting things that you can investigate. Now, what it looks like we're coming up on here, this looks like. Let me get the metal detector back here. I got to retune it because sometimes it gets out of tune. But what this looks like here, this looks like this might have been the clay. Now, the clay is hard to identify when you find it, because remember that it was clay when it was down in the wet, deep gravel, and it was full of moisture and under pressure. But when they bring it up and deposit it on top, and then the rain runs onto it, it looks like so much dirt. But we'll go over this anyway pretty closely here to see if we can find anything. Now we're getting an indication there. I don't get anything here, but I'm getting a nice indication right here, right where that big old red rock is there. So I don't get any other indication, but you want to go over these clay areas real good. But we get an indication here, so let's cut this thing off and take a look. And well, I don't see anything yet, but well, I'm still getting a pretty good indication. Ha 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 ha. Looky here. Boy, just as if it was magic. A little dirty, but really pretty. Can you see that? Isn't that nice? Boy, it doesn't get any better than this. You get out of here and find this sort of stuff. Let's get Jake up here, because Jake's got some good areas. Let me turn this noisemaker off. Sometimes the guys use their headphones and stuff like that, but that is a really nice nugget laying right here. I'll go over that with this detector and make sure there's no more there. No, I don't get another indication. You have to learn to use these detectors. They're not the easiest thing in the world to use the first time you get one, but boy, I'll tell you, they're really slick after they get over. Jake, I found one. Come on over, Jake. Take a look at this nugget. Boy, I'll tell you, howdy, look at that.
Hey, how's it going?
Isn't that a nice flat nugget? Gonna make a nice pendant for somebody.
Clean that dirt off.
Sit down here with me, Jake, because I got to talk to you. You know, we got a lot of friends out here that go prospecting with me every week. And I brought them out to this old derelict dredge here, and we're going over the tailing piles. And man, what do you think that beauty's worth? About 200 bucks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe three. Nice pendant. And I got to clean the dirt off of it. It's got quite a bit of dirt there, isn't that laid there? Now see, that's just too big to go through their trommel screen, Jake.
Yeah.
And so that wound up out here in the tailing pile. And I know there's a lot of areas in the GPAA claims guide, because guys want to know where they can go out. And like I said, you can use any metal detector that you've got. If you've got a metal detector, you don't have to go out and buy one of these that are specially tuned for getting gold, because they'll find real small nuggets once you get used to them. But this size gold here, these big nuggets, you can find with any metal detector you got.
You bet, any kind.
And Jake, the thing that I want you to tell us is on this claims guide, because I know you're right up to date on it.
You bet.
I want you to get the GPAA claims guide out here.
Got it right here.
And let's talk about that a little bit. As a member of the Gold Prospectors Association of America, you can go to any of the claims that are in this book, and a lot of them are river claims. You can dredge on them. You can high bank with your high banker. You can sluice, and it seems like every time we get to shooting a show, we got an airplane coming over out here at the mine.
Dropping off.
Yeah, the old bush pilot, you know. Anyway, you can go to any of these claims, keep all the gold you find, and some of them are really good for all different types of mining. There's desert ones for dry washing and stuff like that. And the rules and regulations are in here, the BLM Forest Service, and I know you guys have got a lot of volunteers that work on these claims, Jake, and make all these areas available, and then the government keeps a lot of them available. The Park Service, the Forest Service, the BLM, that's the Bureau of Land Management, has a lot of open areas where guys can go prospecting, and all of those are listed in here. And so you can go to any of these, but you got to know where they're at. And what we're talking about today, Jake, is somewhere these old tailing piles is. So you want to show us one in there that some of the guys can go to? Now we've got them in every state, I guess, just about most of the states where they're found gold.
Yeah, they've got claims in all the western states. Your eastern states, there's a little bit different situation, but there's places to go. And you know what, another thing that we've done at the GPAA,
Even if you live in some of the states in the East and the Midwest, you know, the mining guide is still good because we have the free information service. You can call up, you can talk to me, I can fill you in on areas to go back in those places and everything, specific areas.
Well, you're pretty busy, Jake. I had a guy tell me the other day, he said, well, he said, I'll talk to you, Buzzard. He said, I'm a little bit disappointed I can't get through to Jake. So I took him on the telephone, because sometimes Jake does get busy, but be patient with him, because he'll get to you, and we're all volunteers down there at the Gold Prospectors Association, and you can tell we're not glitzy, yuppie television people either. Well, maybe the guy behind the camera is. I better not talk too loud. I'm digging a hole for myself here, but anyway, we're out digging for gold, and this is pretty easy digging. This ain't as bad as using the number 2 shovel. You won't get as much exercise. You might have to go down there at the gym and pay them a couple of bucks and get on one of the machines.
In here where they've run in the old days, they've run bucket line.
Do you know of any specific area where they've run bucket line dredges? Maybe the dredge isn't there now, that a guy can go out with a metal detector and have a chance?
We've been to a couple of claims in California, but we ain't going to tell them where they're got.
Well, let me tell you an area. Now, a good place to go, and there's some claims in here near there, and that's up near Snelling, California. Yeah. Out there at Snelling, there's thousands of acres of old tailing piles, and if you ask some of those farmers to let you go on them tailing piles, they'll certainly let you go. They're reclaiming some of them now. They've got some D9 dozers in there, and they're pushing some of these tailing piles down, putting topsoil back over, and reclaiming some of that farmland. That was the only environmental problem that we really had with these dredges, because they didn't really add any chemicals or pollute anything. They didn't work in the stream. They just kind of worked in their own pond, but they did eat up a lot of real good farmland, and some of that's being reclaimed now.
Sumter, Oregon, too. There's
Sumter, Oregon is a real good place, and there's a real good place back there around Dahlonega, Georgia, where there's a lot of tailing piles, and you can recognize those old tailing piles because you'll see these humps of bearing gravel.
Well, that's all we got time for today, folks, but since the Buzzard was using his metal detector, they've gotten even better and better at getting these things fine-tuned for finding gold. And a lot of people are finding gold out there with metal detectors, and the price of gold is up. So you get yours and hope you get the fever and get out there and find some gold. Until next time, see you back here for another one of these Buzzard shows.